I'm waiting.
Wait longer. Bruh. Oh, yes. Okay, officially. We have officially started.
Excellent.
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's the late Lord Haven here. Welcome to another Fantasy Haven live stream. Who is here with me?
Good question. Hello, I am Quinn the GM. I can't remember the last... When did we last stream on this channel? I always feel like it's been a long time, but I think it was a month or two ago.
Yeah, it was only a month ago. It was the ranking nicknames part 2, I think.
Gotcha.
We got to finish that one, right? We got some commoners. Like Andric the Unsmiling. S tier. No, that's like...
I do think I got a comment about him last time we ranked.
People love Andric. I tell you what, it's so...
But welcome, everyone.
Yeah,
Today we're taking a diversion from nicknames because Mr. Late Lord Haven keeps talking about this idea, and I'm interested to discuss it as well.
Yes. We've been planning this one for a while. So, let's break it down. The 5-year time skip. Long story short, originally, A Song of Ice and Fire was going to be 3 books. It was going to be a Game of Thrones, A Dance with Dragons, and The Winds of Winter, I believe.
Yes.
And then, while writing Game of Thrones, he realised, actually, this is a little bit longer than I anticipated. So, the first book was meant to be War of the Five Kings, or whatever whatever civil war was going to be at that point. Book 2 was going to be Dany's Invasion. Book 3, I believe, was going to be, yes, as it says on screen, it was going to be the White Walker Invasion. But then, of course, by the time he finished the Game of Thrones, the war hadn't even begun. Well, it had actually kind of begun. But he then said, okay, so this is going to be 4 books, Clash of Kings to wrap up the Civil War, and then blah, blah, blah. Then, of course, while writing Clash of Kings, he realised it was going to be even longer, so then he was like, how about Clash of Kings and Storm of Swords, 3 books for the War of the Five Kings, then Dance with Dragons, then Winds of Winter. Right, 5 books. And then the 5 books ballooned into 7 books. But before that happened, the original plan was book 1, 2, 3, then a 5-year time gap. He wanted... Because when you look at the first 3 books, Quinn, it is kind of like... It does feel like Act 1.
Yes.
In an insane way.
Whereas, like, now looking at the current, like, present of the series, the 2 most recent books, a lot of people pitch that as Act 2, but the driving force of Act 2, as seen in that letter, was supposed to be Daenerys' invasion, which hasn't happened yet. There was also kind of like a half step between the 5-year gap not happening and happening. I'm not sure if you know about this.
Go on.
In its original inception, A Feast for Crows was going to be like contained within the 5-year gap. It was going to tell the stories that Martin wanted to tell but couldn't because of the 5-year gap, and then A Dance with Dragons was going to pick up after that point, after that gap has taken place.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, that was, I think, only the plan for a year-ish, circa like 2000, I think, 3 or so. That was around the time of like the mega prologue, which was all of the Ironborn and Dornish viewpoints being in a single like 250-page prologue chapter. That was part of the mega prologue, as were a few of the stories that we'll get to when we discuss here.
Yes, because yeah, the not to bury the lead here, but the 5-year time skip was meant to be the big thing. It was meant to be he's finished Storm of Swords. 5-year time jump, the characters are where I need them to be in terms of age and plot, and then boom, we carry on the story. And then while writing that, he thought to himself, but the stuff that happened in 5 years is kind of the things I've come up with. I kind of want to write about those things. And then, like you said, Feast, and then that itself ballooned, and then Feast and Dance just became 1 book split into 2 that doesn't really have an ending and hasn't yet reached... Most of the story hasn't yet reached the point that originally Dance was supposed to begin with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
there were a few stories that I think like have gotten there or have even gotten past there in terms of like what's happened.
Oh yeah, like Cersei, for example. Cersei and Jaime probably.
Yeah.
But like, and Daenerys was like, originally, sorry to interrupt, but Daenerys was like, the first chapter was meant to be her fleeing Meereen on Drogon's back, right?
Yes. Though actually, she, in that original version, when Daenerys 9 was the first chapter, she wasn't actually going to leave Meereen. She flew around the city a few times and then came back, and now is just ruling the city with Drogon. I think the second chapter in that story written was Daenerys 3, and there were some changes there that were found in the Cushing Library.
Yeah, oh, I remember we did live stream of that, right? The Cushing Library stuff.
Yeah.
Or was it
Did
another
we? I
one?
think we did another,
We did
like the
another
drafts
set
that
of
came out
leaks.
like 03, 04. I think we streamed.
Oh, there've been so many weird leaks. Anyway,
Yeah, there have.
so essentially,
Yes.
what this live stream is going to be is how do we make the 5-year time skip work? Let's say we have the first 3 books: Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords. We have to add 5 years and then write a book after those 5 years. How do we make it work? Can we make it work? Etc. Etc. Let's do what George could not, from the comfort of our homes. Before we begin, I will say, like the video if you haven't already to help it spread, and if you want to send in a question or a theory or just a comment in general, feel free to send in a super chat to support the channel. There's also a link in the description to Streamlabs, so you can also send a Streamlabs donation and that will come up on screen as well, hopefully. And the difference between that and YouTube super chats is that YouTube takes a cut whereas Streamlabs doesn't take any cut, so everything you send comes all the way, which is nice. Okay, I got that boring bit out of the way. Let's begin.
Wonderful.
So we're going to be jumping by point of view, focusing on a point of view characters, but obviously we can also discuss the characters surrounding the POVs. And we haven't spoken to each other about our thoughts yet.
Yes.
So assuming this, yeah, it has switched. Okay, so we're starting off with the Beyond the Wall, Bran Stark. So Bran Stark at the end of A Storm of Swords has reached Bloodraven's cave, and he's been told that he won't walk anymore, but he will fly. 5 years later, he is 14 years of age. I'm going to start with you. Yeah, what's your pitch?
Your summary is actually exactly highlighting the point I wanted to make with Bran that I've literally never seen discussed before. That being that your summary is kind of incorrect because he doesn't end A Storm of Swords in Bloodraven's Cave. That's the end of Bran 2, A Dance with Dragons. In the published material, A Storm of Swords, we last see Bran going through the wall. And then we'll be picking up 5 years later, assumedly in Bloodraven's Cave. I think if Bran was really going to work with the time skip, with like, he's one of the characters who I think would benefit the most from the time skip. I think he kind of needs one more chapter to actually get to the cave and start training, because we see that like it might be a little disconnected to just see him going north and then, oh, he's in a cave with this tree person, and how did he get there? What's going on? I don't know. What do you think?
Damn, I've been completely HBO
that's Bran 2
rotted. Oh my god, yeah, because at the end of season 4, which is based on the second half of A Storm of Swords, that's when Bran reaches the cave, and it does feel like a proper conclusion.
Yes.
Oh my god, that's like a full-on.
And Arya has a very similar problem. I assume we'll get to this later. I have more to say on Arya than just this, but Arya leaves Westeros at the end of A Storm of Swords, and then we'd assumably be picking up 5 years into her Faceless Men training, with her not having really gotten to Braavos. We have no clue where Arya is or what she's doing.
This is some like Game of Thrones induced Mandela effect. Like, I genuinely thought in my head that Bran reaches the cave in
honestly,
Damn.
if my knowledge of A Dance with Dragons specifically wasn't at such an encyclopedic point because of the video I recently published, I think I might have made that mistake as well.
So I guess there are two options here. One is Bran spends 5 whole years finding the cave, which is a bit ridiculous, or we meet him.
I think that's a great idea.
He's 14 years old. He's lying in that cave already, and he's doing whatever training he's going to do in Winds that we don't even know yet. He's eating some Jojen paste. He's getting to know the Children of the Forest. Maybe he's doing some flashback expedition montages or whatever. I don't know.
Jojen paste, I don't think happens in this version of the story. I think Jojen's probably just dead. Or maybe it did happen in the distant past. InChat in the chat brings up a good point that, like, yeah, Bran's arrival at the cave could just be shown in flashback, but it does kind of line up with Martin, like, generally structuring chapters. Like, he likes to start, like, in the action, and then we go back to see how the characters have gotten there, and then we go back to the present, and things happen, and then we end on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, like,
so it could end up being like that structure, but I still think it'd be pretty jarring.
But I mean, this whole exercise is going to be jarring. A 5-year time skip is always going to be jarring. Like, I can see him kind of thinking back he remembered when he first entered the cave and what the old man told him, and kind of repeat that scene, or even get trippy with it, have Bran walk a weirwood like in the past to
like see his own journey.
Yeah.
That'd be neat, actually.
Right?
I
Imagine
like
that. Imagine he's like, oh, that I was 9 years old then. I was so young, and like he sees the interaction, and he's like, what is it the old man said?
He's 9 now. Jesus.
Yeah, he is. In the books, he is 9 years old. The ages are wild.
I know. That's like the biggest benefit to me. Like, even more than having these characters have like training arcs or whatever, I feel like I am able to much better suspend my disbelief if these characters are 5 years older.
Yeah. So
do you think like a first Bran chapter would resemble what we see in Bran 3, or do you think he'd be further along? Do you think we might start with like, I don't know, some broader flashback, and maybe like chapter 2 is like hold the door? Or do you think it's
I think he would be deep again, like you said about the whole training arcs, right? We're training these kids up for the next step of the journey. I don't think he's going to be sitting there curious about what's going on, eating some confusing paste and all that stuff. I think he's going to already have certain skills. Like, he's probably practiced walking a whole bunch of animals. He's probably already going into the trees and seeing things in the past, and we're probably like in media res, we're in the action, and like you said, maybe very early on the cave gets
I was thinking
raided,
like,
hold the door.
Do we even think Bloodraven is still around?
Yes, I think it will be it will be ridiculous to set up a character like Bloodraven and have him be the three-eyed crow and then be like, he died in the 5 years. Like, he's definitely there.
Died returning to his home planet.
If he's lived for a couple centuries, he can survive 5 more years.
What if like Bran killed him and absorbed his power?
Oh my god, Bran's in the tree.
Yeah.
It's like Reek all over again. The chapter title is Three-Eyed Crow, and you're like, oh, we're from the perspective of this old man, and it's Bran.
Yeah, but then that would get confusing with the Blackfish viewpoint chapters.
Wait, what?
We don't want 2 Brendans.
There's going to be a Blackfish viewpoint chapter?
Of course.
Is that paramount to the 5-year time skip?
Yes, that's non-negotiable.
Brynden in Riverrun has been besieged for 5 years.
I have heard people pitch him. I've heard people pitch him as a viewpoint for the the prologue. Sorry, I don't buy that, but
the prologue. Yeah. Ooh. Well, we already know the prologue is going to be.
I guess it would be in this version of the 5-year gap. The prologue would probably just be the mega prologue. Yeah. Or some heavily modified version.
Yes. I mean, the idea of the mega prologue is very risky. Maybe not so risky when you have a big series that's kind of already popular and you can kind of get away with anything at that point because you've got a big fandom. But I don't know, the idea of just having a novella essentially as a prologue, dancing around all these Ironborn characters you don't really know, that is a way to kind of turn people off.
I think you kind of just accidentally said exactly the right solution to that. Like, what if that was just like a novella that Martin put out in between?
Ooh, the Ironborn novella
and A Dance with Dragons.
I mean, he has released a novella before based on cutting out Daenerys' storyline from A Game of Thrones, and I forgot what he called the book.
Something Dragon, I don't remember, but he actually also did that with the Ironborn chapters in A Feast for Crows already.
Oh, did
Arms of the Kraken was released before A Feast for Crows.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, it was in Dragon Magazine, I think. It was the first 4 Ironborn chapters, so the lead up to and the King's Moot.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, someone didn't watch my chapter that exploded the Winds of Winter video.
But you've got so many videos. Just do what I do. Release them like once a month.
That's a good idea. I'll start doing that.
Trust me, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So okay.
Do we have anything else we think for Bran overall?
I think his one's pretty simple. He's just spent 5 years in the cave learning from Bloodraven how to do more green seeing and how to look into the past, and probably learning about whatever prophetic shit Bloodraven has to say, and learning how to deal with the White Walker threat, etc. The question is, will the book be him training, or will it be him going out? But I guess we don't know yet because we've had so few Bran chapters in the cave, so we don't know. But yeah, I think we can. This one is a simple one to make work. He's just been training for 5 years in the cave.
I think that's also the case for all of the non-Jon Stark kids. I think they're going to be the simplest.
Yes. So some of them won't be so simple, but yeah, Bloodraven's chilling, Hodor's chilling, Mira's chilling, and Jojen is long gone. Speaking of, I do have a tip. I'm not sure if it showed up on screen. It's a Streamlabs tip from Vandalman. Okay, it's from Vandalman, so it's going to include the word milk in it because he can't let that meme die. Jojen paste. Where do I get me some Jojen milk? There we go. I've read you like a book. Jojen milk goes with Jojen paste. You have a bowl of Jojen paste, you have a bowl of Jojen milk to help wash it down, and boom, you're the new three-eyed crow. The blue-eyed crow. That's what they call it. Okay, moving on. Further south, to the Wall. So, first and foremost, Jon Snow. There's Jon Snow on the left. I've drawn him with a beard. He's let me double check. Jon Snow is 22 years old. Around.
Is that true?
Yep.
Wouldn't he be 21? I think he's 16 in Dance. Or no, he's 15 or 16 at the end of A Storm of Swords. I know he's 16 in Dance.
Okay, he's 16. Oh, yes, he is 16. He's 16 in Dance, and then... Wait, is he the same age as Daenerys? He is, isn't he?
Or I think he's very slightly older. But yeah, I think they're about the same age.
Oh, yes, of course he's slightly older, because... Damn, imagine your nephew being older than you. That is wild. Yes, no, he's 20. He's 21 then. You're right. So yes.
Is that Saturn on the right?
Oh, we'll get to Saturn soon. So
okay,
Jon Snow. He's got a beard now. He's an adult.
Yes.
He's the Lord Commander. Now, what people might forget, again, the whole Mandela effect, Jon Snow doesn't become the Lord Commander in Dance. He becomes the Lord Commander at the end of Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike in the show where he becomes Lord Commander at the beginning of season 5. So we still don't really get around the silliness of Jon Snow becoming Lord Commander at 14 or 15 or whatever. But he's been Lord Commander. It's been 5 years. What has he been up to in that time? I think
it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
How much do you know specifically about why the 5-year gap died?
Well, I know one of the reasons was he kept trying to fill in what happened in the 5 years and realised what he was coming up with was interesting and he wanted to write about it. And also for some characters, he said it just didn't work.
Yes. He specifically mentions 2 characters, like, where they are recently entering a very strange situation, and it makes no sense for that situation to stall for 5 years, only to start up again at this point, and one of those 2 characters is Jon, being elected to Lord Commander.
Because he's just become the Lord Commander, he knows that there's a threat beyond the wall of the White Walkers, he's just negotiated a peace with the Wildlings, and it's like, what's happened in 5 years? Because if you just go through...
And Stannis is there, too.
And Stannis. I think we should get to Stannis when we move on to Melisandre.
Yes.
But with Jon Snow, what exactly is... Yeah, what is he doing at the wall? You could say that, okay, he's maybe trying to find more recruits. He's brought all the wildlings in and he's trying to integrate them. Maybe he's done a couple marriages already, like the whole Alice Karstark, Magnar thing. Rebuilding the Night Fort. Again, 5 years is a lot. I think it's...
So,
yeah.
The Night Fort, I think, will come in more with Stannis, because there are specific notes to that effect. I think overall Jon would do a better job as Lord Commander given this 5-year gap circumstance, because I don't think he gets killed, at least at this stage. So it is interesting. I think that a lot of that time would probably be dedicated to just reestablishing the Watch of the Wall, trying to expand things, negotiating a peace with the Wildlings to some effect, similar to like Jon 11, the negotiations with Tormund. I think we wouldn't need that in the published series if there was this gap. I think we'd probably pick up maybe the Wildlings are south of the Wall broadly, and there maybe are tensions growing there, in addition to problems looming north of the Wall with the others, which are a kind of an issue for me in terms of like, I don't know why the threat of the others would stall for 5 years, given them just attacking the Fist of the First Men.
Yeah, exactly. They're kind of on the march, on the move, and then suddenly, what are they doing in 5 years? Are they just mopping up all of the excess people beyond the wall who need to be transformed into whites, etc. Like,
We
yeah,
we know that at an earlier point in Martin's notes, Hardhome was a much bigger part of the Jon story,
yes,
um, which I could see being included in this version of the story without the or with the gap. But also that would kind of stretch the issue of the others not really attacking even further if this big
yeah,
attack on this
exactly.
outpost doesn't happen until after the gap.
Yeah, like
With
why
that
would
said, I do.
oh,
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say, why would he wait 5 whole years if there's a giant outpost full of a bunch of essentially wildling refugees? Why would he go himself or send people out or whatever? 5 years. Why would he wait 5 years? Like, what's been happening in those 5 years?
Exactly.
Yeah, and the
Yeah, I
whole
do
like,
also think.
yeah.
Yeah, I think removed from the 5 year gap, Hardhome was how he initially intended to kill Jon, but I don't think that is something
Yeah.
that he was considering when he was doing the 5 year gap.
Yes, I agree. I think the original thing was hard home, and then he realized that a Caesar style betrayal would be cooler. But yeah, yeah.
Do you think Jon still dies if there's a 5 year gap?
I guess it all depends on what the purpose of his resurrection is, because the only purpose it served in the show was a legal loophole to get out the Night's Watch, and
True.
and obviously I don't think Jon Snow's entire story is just he is at the Night's Watch for the entire thing,
Yes.
but I don't know. Would Martin have come up with? I mean, he's sown the seeds for resurrections already, and I don't know if
For
all
resurrections generally, but like Jon specifically, there are a lot of seeds sown for it, but they're all within the published To Dance with Dragons. Like, it's not like the Red
yeah,
Wedding where like there have been hints as early as like Clash and the first one.
yeah, that's true. I don't know. I don't know if Jon Snow would have been whether that would have happened. I do not know, but
It seems like if it is like a faster paced version of the series, it might just be kind of an unnecessary wrinkle. I'm not sure.
so
Because it is so good and it's so well built, but if he's been Lord Commander for 5 years, I feel like if you're going to establish a mutiny that kills him, it's going to need to have roots pretty far back that might be difficult to establish via
yeah.
flashback or present dialogue.
Like, why has no one done anything in those 5 years? And what are the wildlings up
Exactly.
to? Are they fully integrated? Are they now helping out with the Night's Watch? What's going
I
on
think
with
the
Mance
Wild
Raider?
Thing
Like, is he
portion,
just chilling? Is he dead? Is he in disguise as Rattleshirt for like 5 whole years?
I feel like that's probably impossible
He's
unless we're
probably
buying that what he's Rhaegar or something. But
he's probably dead. I think in the time skip he's dead, but there's a flashback to his
agreed.
death scene. I think, yeah, him staying alive doesn't make sense for his character. I don't think he'd bend the knee.
I think the wildling issues are the part of the plot that benefits the most from the 5 year gap. I think that it's something that like you could conceivably say that yes, through Stannis' intervention and this just massive shift of circumstance that maybe comes along with Mance's death, we were able to negotiate passage, as was the case in the published material.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you think it works overall? As in, nothing really works 100%, but like leaning towards yay or nay. Jon Snow, 5 years, Lord Commander, professionalizing the Watch, integrating the wildlings, keeping an eye out on the White Walkers, etc. Does it work?
I lean nay on this one. I think it could broadly, I think having a more competent Night's Watch for what's coming could be a good thing to introduce into the story, but I think Jon's individual narrative, I don't know why I said that so expressly pronounced, would
Yes.
suffer a lot for it.
You
And I think that Martin kind of recognized that
you're sounding a bit transatlantic there.
a little bit. But this is a transatlantic stream, so
Oh yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think, John?
I think it could work. I think I'm kind of in the middle. The boring answer, fence sitter, radical centrist. I'm kind of in the middle here. I think it could be kind of eyebrow raising, but I think you could make it work if you make everything around it work. And like even the whole wildling situation. Sorry, the mutiny situation. You could explore that in more depth. Like I already said, why would they wait 5 years to rebel? But then I was like, I don't know. You could have like factions. There could be factions in the Night's Watch, well, with faction leaders, and like there's some like political tension going on, and there's a lot you could do. There is a lot you could do. Like there could be a very obvious faction that is the go away wildlings, go away Jon Snow, install base Janos Slint or Bowen Marsh or something. And
I was gonna say Janos Slint is probably alive in this story.
yes, he's probably yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say if you work hard, it could work. Jon Snow, 5 years, Lord Commander. The others not doing anything in those years, you'd have to come up with something that they're doing.
That's the thing.
To explain.
I think.
Yeah.
The others are a wrinkle that I can't really get around, and I think when combined with Stannis, who I assume we'll get to next, I think it makes the plot unworkable in a 5-year gap.
But I guess you could, because there's lots of territory beyond the wall, right? You could kind of make you could have it be like, throughout the 5 years, we lost touch with the the Hornfoot tribe and the River tribe, and like contact has slowly been breaking off across the north, and basically all these communities that didn't go down with Mance Rayder are disappearing, and the wildlings are literally just the White Walkers are just mopping up and taking every single place, and like that they are on the move, and it's known they're on the move as opposed to being silent for 5 years. Or maybe you make that part of the story that they haven't moved in 5 years, and people are beginning to doubt Jon. And doubt the wildlings.
That could be interesting, and that could be a root
being
of the mutiny.
They're liars. The wildlings are liars. They're not fleeing from anything. They made it up,
Yeah, I could see that. I'd say, if you had to make the others work in this 5-year gap scenario, I think that's how you do it.
But yes, let's not deprive the people of the one true king for any longer. So
yes,
first, will Melisandre be a POV?
That's the interesting thing. Martin has said that going into A Dance with Dragons, like the actual A Dance with Dragons that we got, Martin only intended one new viewpoint character. And it's unclear who that is. We know it's not Connington. We know it's not Barristan. It's either Quentyn or Melisandre. I lean towards it being Quentyn. What do you think?
I agree, because as far as I understand, Melisandre probably only exists as a POV so that there is a POV at the wall when Jon is dead.
Yes, I think she's organically born from his death and needing someone in the aftermath of that.
I suspect he retroactively went back in the story while writing Dance and added a Melisandre chapter so that it didn't come... I mean, he didn't need to. You could start wins and be like, Melisandre won. But, I don't know, maybe he wanted to sow that seed earlier so that it didn't feel as jarring.
I think that was a good decision.
So if he doesn't die at the end of this time skip, and we're not sure if he will or not, then maybe you don't need Melisandre as a POV.
Especially because I don't know if you have a Davos slide, but he is a massive variable, like in terms of where he would be after a 5-year gap.
I think I forgot to add Davos.
Oh,
I'm so
you're
sorry.
like me. I forgot Davos in a couple graphics.
I do have Davos art. I just didn't include him. I do apologize.
Yeah, because obviously his mission to White Harbor would have ended either for better or for worse, like a month or two into that 5-year gap.
Yes.
So
okay,
assumedly he'd return to Stannis.
Yes, let's move on to Stannis and Stannis and Davos right now. In terms of ages, just to throw it out there, Melisandre is obviously a giant question mark.
Yes.
She's now 185, which was 180 before, right? No, Davos, we don't actually know how old Davos is, but I'm guessing he's like late 40s in the main series.
I would guess Davos doesn't know how old Davos is.
That's a good point. He's a smuggler. Let's say mid-50s or something. Yes, so Davos... I can't believe I didn't add him. That's really annoying. Anyway, so start off with Stannis before Davos. So Stannis Baratheon...
Yes.
This is one of the most...
So Stannis...
This is one of the biggest question marks. What has he been doing for 5 entire years?
We know some. I think from Martin's old notes from around this period that apparently a lot of older stuff focused on Stannis restoring the Night Fort as a base of operations.
Yes. And kind of, ruling from it. There's a bit of a... Obviously, there's a little bit of a Night's King parallel there. With Melisandre as his Night Queen almost, but fiery instead of icy.
Day Queen?
What queen?
Day Queen? Fighter of the Night Queen?
Champion of the Moon Meteor? God damn, that was such a good line and you interrupted it.
Sorry.
Fucking Discord.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sorry. I will give up on trying to add Davos right now. My PC is not letting me.
I did not know that was what you were doing.
Yes, I apologize, everyone. Okay, so yes, so he's at the Night Fort then. That's his base of operations, and that's really cool. He's gone from the obvious villain island of Dragonstone to the obvious villain castle in the north. The evil Uncle Stannis is in the north in the Night Fort with Melisandre, right? It's quite cool. And he's got his army there. So
Yep.
I've only really heard one way that you can justify Stannis sitting at the wall for 5 entire years with an entire army and a bunch of mercenaries not marching south to take Winterfell or the Dreadfort or whatever. And that is the idea of essentially in 5 years there's been like a massive blizzard and no one's able to move anywhere.
Alternatively, it could just be him focusing on the true enemy.
Oh, to the north.
Yes, albeit that does very much depart from his characterization at the end of Storm, where he makes that offer to Jon that, hey, I'll legitimize you if you help me take Winterfell. So that is, I think, another thing that kind of creates a big wrinkle here, in that he is so clearly like running for Winterfell at the end of A Storm of Swords. I think another strong possibility would be like...
There we go. What if he... Say that again?
What if he lost? What if he tried to claim Winterfell, fought the Boltons, and like retreated to the Night Fort?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because obviously no Night Lamp in this circumstance.
Yeah. Yes, it could be. At first I was thinking it feels a bit disappointing. But yeah, that could
But also
work.
kind of on brand, because Stannis has never won anything.
He never
in the
wins.
published series.
Yeah, he gets beaten back, and he's like, okay, I can't quite take the north, so I'm going to focus on the White Walker threat with the Night's Watch. And of course, like he said, to win the kingdom, there needs to be a kingdom. You need to save the kingdom. So obviously, you've got to yeah.
And he does kind of like have a PR problem, which assumedly saving the realm from the others would help.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of... Yeah, it's not just a kind of, I need to do this because it's the right thing to do. There's also a sense of, how do I get the Seven Kingdoms to rally behind me? It's, I need to save them from the apocalypse. Yeah, sorry, I only asked you to repeat yourself earlier because I once again tried to sort out the Canva thing and then it just didn't work. So I'm
I could tell. I can get an image of Davos. Hold on a second. We have some super chats. It looks like
you do. I'll read them out while you grab some Davos. Thank you for the super chat from... Oh, we have a tip as well. Thank you for the Streamlabs tip from Jerome Clarkson, who says, he was a small, ordinary-looking man with a common face, brown hair thinning on top, and a short, scruffy beard. This is how Davos is described in A Clash of Kings. So I guess you guys were right about him being in his late 40s. Yeah, thinning hair, kind of suggests 40s, I guess. There he is. The only
He's having a good time.
Man in the Seven Kingdoms with a Geordie accent for some reason. Oh, I can't wait.
I love Liam Cunningham. Or that's his name, right?
Yes, he's awesome. He is awesome. But yes, thank you for the super chat from Ulrich Trant, the Maester of Milk, who says, all hail House Trant, and then several milk emojis. I have a House Cod stan, I have a House Trant stan. I don't quite understand it, but I guess the community's kind of imploding at this point, so what else can you expect? Thank you for the super chat from Sir Marhouse, who says, oh, this is for you, Quinn. Quinn, been seeing Mikey from Legends of Avrantis retweeting you. Have you watched them at all? If not, I highly recommend them. Great D&D channel.
Oh, I've heard of that channel. I didn't realize that somebody from it has been retweeting me. I'll have to check that out.
That's pretty awesome.
It'd be fun to reach out. I need to do more D&D stuff. I miss it.
You do. We need to do a live streamed A Song
like
of
a
Ice
one
and
shot
Fire
or something.
one shot.
Yeah.
That definitely won't
That's
go terribly wrong. No, that would be fun. Yeah. That would be fun. And then finally, thank you for the super chat from Perido Gladioli, who says, Jon Snow, Melisandre, and ... Who is that, my Lord Haven? We'll move on to him in a sec, but let's just wrap up the Stannis discussion. So I like your idea of he in the time skip he does launch an attack south against the Boltons. He fails, he gets kicked back. Maybe you can throw in like a year-long blizzard or something, and he goes, I need to focus on the north. But then it's like, but then how does the story begin? Does it begin with him being like, I've changed my mind, I am going to march south again and take on the Boltons?
I have no clue. That is tricky.
Because it
is also, talking about the blizzard, that does kind of make me think that, like, I don't know, the seasons kind of make more sense in a story with this 5-year gap, because, like, this fall, as it exists in the series, is super short. Like, it starts in the prologue of A Clash of Kings and ends in the, epilogue of A Dance with Dragons? So, like, a year-long fall or thereabouts?
Yes, yeah. So you could
making
have a
that
kind
longer
of...
could also make sense.
Hey, you know how there's the, was it the year of the false spring?
Yes.
What if you had, like, the 5 years of false winter, where... it's not actually winter, it's just like a false winter with a blizzard, and it's like, no, it's not winter yet, sorry guys, it's still autumn, and then they get hit with a super hard winter.
I could see that, but also I'm not sure that he would bring the winds of winter before the winds of winter.
That's a good point. Yeah, a 5 years of blizzard just making everyone stuck in the north does work, but it is kind of lame. It is kind of eye-rolling, isn't it? It's
a
like,
little bit.
It's like, oh, that's convenient.
Exactly.
I
don't think Martin tends that direction.
So let me move on to the character on the right. Everyone in the chat seems to think it's Satin. I'm telling you
I thought it
now,
was Satin.
if I was drawing Satin, I'd make him far prettier. That is not Satin. That is, post 5-year time skip, Sam Tarly. Because 5 years of the Wall, you better believe he's lost some weight. I'm not having this bullshit where he hasn't lost any weight at the Wall. That man is constantly moving around. He is barely eating anything. He's eating cardboard for lunch. Come on.
I completely forgot that Sam was still at the Wall.
Yes, he's at the Wall. So I feel like this one, and I have another slide, but just to clarify, where do you think Sam is?
Not the Wall.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any other ideas, but yes, I think
Aemond 100% bought the farm during the 5-year gap, and I think Sam would probably pick up in Old Town studying to be a maester or return to the Wall as a maester. I tend to think he'll still be in Old Town. I think Martin wants us to see that location.
Yes, and so what we have here is Sam in Old Town. I had him at the Wall just in case you had any like surprise theories about he may have stayed. But yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. He's already been sent off. He's at Old Town. Like you said, Mace Damon's probably alive because it would be weird to kill him off between books. And 5 years in, he's probably like an acolyte. He's probably forged a few chains.
Yeah.
I think the time skip works very well for Sam.
I was going to say, I'd never considered like Sam in relation to the 5-year gap, but honestly, Sam's story in A Feast for Crows is one of my least favorite in the series. And avoiding that is kind of great, and I think it works really well for him.
Really? You don't like him stewing on a boat thinking about how fat and lame he is all the time?
I like Sam 1. I love having like the two halves of his conversation with Jon and like seeing both of their thoughts. I think that's really fun, but the rest of it, I am not a fan.
I will stick by my hot take that Sam has one of the worst arcs of any POV character based on the second half of his arc. Not the first half. The first half is fine. The second half was done better, way better in the show.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I feel like Sam's arc in A Storm of Swords is entirely carried by the things happening around him and has less to do with him as a character. Like, he is there for the Fist of the First Men, he's there for the Mutiny at Crestor's Keep, and he's there to get Jon elected as Lord Commander. I think the last one he takes an active role in, but overall, he's always been low on my list of viewpoints.
Yeah, that's a good point. He is very much a sort of camera that rides in the north, but because we've met him before, we like him and there's stuff to him. It's kind of a setup for an arc that isn't happening yet. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's the thing. Like, I like Sam as a character so much, but also like, I mean, comparing him to the camera that rides, I prefer Ario's internal narration that isn't like constantly self-deprecating.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, Ario is more boring, but also he's less insufferable. Like,
he's stoic. He's the strong, silent type.
Like, I can't stand. Oh my God, Sam angers me so much. Oh, anyway, I'm fine with the self-loathing in Storm, absolutely, but Feast is Oh my god. Anyway, yes. So 5 years training at the Citadel. He's befriended Alaras the Sphinx. He's befriended Leo. He's befriended Pate. Maybe Pate is a faceless man. Maybe he's not. He's probably, we're getting to know all of the Archmaesters, like Marwyn the Mage and the one they call Vinegar, and he's maybe an acolyte and he's got a bunch of chains. Like, you could have some like cool Hogwarts stuff going on. Like, he can think back to all the different lessons he's had. I think because based on how most of the characters in Winds aren't really going to have many chapters to deal with because there's so many of them and there's so much to do, I feel like Sam's not going to spend much time at the Citadel, which is kind of disappointing, you know?
I feel like by necessity he is going to have to.
Yeah, but I feel like a 5-year time skip genuinely allows for more juice, so that we don't have him just traveling for a whole book. We can have him we can learn what he got up to, and we can see him getting up to stuff. And yeah.
I genuinely think that the only reason Sam's arc was what it was and it lasted as long as it did, which 5 chapters isn't a ton, but in a feast it's a lot, is because Martin wanted Feast to like be a book in itself, and he really didn't have anything else like ready. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It feels like it's the closest the series comes to filler, in my opinion.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there's a lot of filler and dance. Are you kidding me? And even Feast.
I disagree.
I'll say it. There's filler and dance and Feast, 100%.
Dance, there's some stuff that is like bordering on redundant and inefficient, but
Tyrion's
I don't call like 2 chapters in Dance filler.
I'd have to.
Those being The Windblown and Dany 3, most of Tyrion 7.
I'd have to reread. Well, I'd have to read full stop because, as we know, I haven't read the books. Yes, I think yay or nay, does 5-year time skip Sam learning, training, discovering the secrets?
Bigger yay than Bran for me.
You could. I saw this comment on Reddit a few days ago. It was like, you could make, while researching my upcoming video, you could make like an entire novel out of Old Town. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
In terms of potential.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on, but I'll blitz through some more super chats. Yeah, we had All Hail House Trant. What else do we have? Yes, say a prayer to the butcher's boy. Several milk emojis. Once again from Ulrich Trant, the Maester of Milk. Thank you so much. Ulrich sent another super chat too, saying the Hilters demand tribute, submit, or get milked. I nearly misread that because of those 2 letters. That would have...
Oh god, yeah.
That was initially very, very confusing. Thank you for the super chats, guys. Let's move on to...
I will say, this next character, I don't know if anything changes.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's
you could plop Reek, all of Reek's story, all of Theon's story into a 5-year gap scenario, and it just makes the torture make more sense, and why he's in this state make more sense.
The implications are just more horrifying because he's had 5 extra years of this shit. But like you said, it does make more sense that he is as broken as he is. I'm not sure what else.
I think honestly, it's kind of a rare case. I don't know if there's anyone else where you could just like do their published chapters 5 years later.
Yeah, you could just. I mean. So
you would need some changes. I assume like the Arya wedding stuff would like scramble a little bit. Yes. But beyond that,
wait. Let's talk about that. So some of the things to think about are Moat Cailin. Has he already liberated that? Is that something he has a memory of, or is he sent to? Because him being sent to do that is a really cool moment. But why would they wait 5 years to do it? Other than, of course, the magical blizzard.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If that and the wedding to Arya are the 2 things that I think are time sensitive. I mean, Ramsay's wedding to Arya. Theon doesn't marry fake Arya, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, like you said, you've got the Winterfell wedding. Is that whole... presumably that's already happened, because isn't Jane Paul sent off at the end of Storm, right? We hear that...
Yes, in Jaime's chapter.
So that means that... So does that... And also, is Theon in the Dreadful, or is he in... Presumably he's in the Winterfell dungeons, because Ramsay's now Lord of Winterfell, and Winterfell's probably been rebuilt by now, and he's married to Jane Paul. But then... Yeah, then what does he do then? Because his whole... Like, the first chapter you can basically transplant, but...
It's also, you're right, with like the later chapters in Winterfell and that like mounting tension being penned in by Stannis, like You could do that with just a blizzard, which is also a factor, but having that enemy, which you think is right outside your walls, I think is also a factor there. And also, like, Mance comes into the story later on, and we're unsure what he would be doing in this scenario.
Well, I think you would still have you'd still have Stannis coming down south, in the
Yes.
story. But in terms of, all the guests at Winterfell and everyone being enclosed in by that blizzard in the books and him saving Jane Poole, like the pacing is really good in Dance for Theon. I'm not sure how you would.
Absolutely.
I don't know how you do that. Like, would you have to kind of create a new event to have everyone come in and have that Northern conspiracy and all that stuff?
I would say probably.
What could it be? What could it be?
Rickon returning? Question mark.
Maybe.
Like maybe it's not. You know what? It could be the show. Like, what if Ramsay's in control of Winterfell and he somehow captures Rickon and has him as a hostage, and because of that, people are advancing on Winterfell. That's what starts things going again after so many years.
But how would you have it so that you have all of the northern lords and ladies in Winterfell? Kind of half of them are loyal to the Boltons, the other half aren't, and like there's that whole
Maybe
growing
if there
tension
is
and murders going on. Like, how do you?
It could be like with this growing like sense of unease in the north, and if there are people willing to go to war to get Rickon back, he might like call his banners effectively and make all of the lords like come to Winterfell and swear loyalty, during which time maybe they get penned in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it works quite as well as the published thing, but it is an angle.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I fully understand, like, 5 years torture, he's Reek. You can understand how he can go through the Dance arc. It's just he's going through it 5 years later. That makes sense. There just needs to be a catalyst. The catalyst could be Stannis, but there needs to be something within Winterfell as well that pushes him to save Jane Poole and it's hard to work out, but
Yeah.
shall we move on then? Oh, actually,
We shall.
Before we move on, does it work? Yay or nay?
Does what work? Oh, Theon. I would say more on the yay side than nay. I thought you were like trying out a new like video effect.
No, this man forgot what live stream we were doing.
Yeah. No, yay from me.
Cool. A yay from me as well.
What about you?
I do think it works. Okay, moving on to the Iron Island, because no one's in the Riverlands, by the way, by the end of Storm.
Is that true? Yeah, you're right. That's crazy.
Well, technically, are you?
She's leaving for Bravos.
Yeah,
I think she's on a boat at the end of her last chapter.
So we move over to the Iron Islands, and we have the 3 POVs in Feast, and also Dance. We have Asher, Aeron, and Victarion. So I feel like you should take this one away.
Actually, Aeron isn't in Dance.
Oh, ugh.
So I think it's similar to what I'd mentioned earlier with like, I think the mega prologue would be best served as like its own novella, because it is so interesting. The Ironborn perspective on the Kingsmoot is fascinating, but it's also locked in time as having already happened by the end of A Storm of Swords, because before the Red Wedding, we hear about Balin, however you say it, death. And we know the Kingsmoot is called, I think, within a week of Balin's death. So this would have happened, and Martin clearly wants to show it on screen. So I think that having that novella or some way of introducing this mega prologue that does show us, at the very least, the Kingsmoot is probably a good way to do it. With that said, from there, 5 years later, I'm not exactly sure where the Ironborn go. I think Aeron is kind of fitting into Theon's camp of like, maybe Euron just kept damn fair for like 5 years as a prisoner or something to that effect. But I think Victarion is probably dead in this 5-year gap scenario. Though it is worth noting that if we are looking at the original mega prologue and the Arms of the Kraken as it was released, the Reaver was not included, which is the last Ironborn chapter in A Feast for Crows, which contains Victarion getting his hand injured by Talbot Serry's sword, which later is infected, and I think was at one point probably how Martin was going to kill him. So there'd probably have to be some other method of death there. And it's also worth noting, last thing I say, I apologize for ranting about the Ironborn here. We know that in early versions of this story, the initial plan was to have Euron and Victarion go to Daenerys in Meereen. So I think in this version of the story, that's probably what happens. But I don't know if that would happen 5 years later or what would delay Euron 5 years in doing that. What do you think?
Yes, I agree to everything you said.
Excellent,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think so. I think, yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because let's take
I
Aeron.
think Asha is the biggest question
Yes, I
mark.
was gonna say Aeron and Victarion are just kind of like chilling, right? Aeron's just a drowned priest. Victarion's just on the Iron
Aeron is
Isles.
probably a prisoner. Victarion is probably dead.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I say chilling, that yeah, within the context of Euron is the king. Um, uh, Aeron's a prisoner because I think that whole battle of blood could be interesting. Victarion. So so wait, hold on. The whole Victarion being dead, is that complete? Are we scrapping the idea of Victarion being sent to woo Dany?
So I think that his death well, actually, we know his death happens on the way to woo Danny. In Martin's old draft version of Feast, circa I want to say 2004, the Reaver chapter was written, so he'd gone beyond the arms of the Kraken, and then he has one more chapter where Victarion dies. And we know the end of the Reaver chapter is Victarion being sent off to get Daenerys. So it seems like Victarion and Euron were going to take a road trip together. Everyone would have a great time, and then Victarion would die.
What's the point of that?
Great question.
What? Oh, then what? Do they all turn back, or do they keep going
Yeah,
to
I don't know
Dany
what
and then
what
they
the
just steal
plan
the
was
ships and
with.
haha, we have a fleet now? Like, what's the?
I think part of why I don't know, this whole thing with Euron going to Daenerys is interesting, and I've never quite been sure what I think of it. I think in my mind, it makes it most likely that Euron is going to be at least somewhat successful in winning a dragon to his cause. Because I see no world in which Daenerys teams up with Euron or the Ironborn, not counting Victarion, who I could see her making an alliance with. I don't see her ever partnering with Euron, but I could see Euron turning around once he has a dragon.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. Um,
And I do think if we
do,
look at the dragons in, I'm going to mention it, HBO's Game of Thrones, we have one that is supernaturally controlled by an evil entity and one that is shot down by Euron Greyjoy. I think both of those things point towards a Euron dragon.
yeah, honestly, I'm tempted. I'm tempted to agree. Also, Euron is going to Old Town potentially. You don't agree? We can talk about that in another stream. Um, and
Bullshit.
what?
Him
Oh,
going to Old Town. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I thought. Oh, you said bullshit. I thought you said oh shit. It sounded like you'd fallen off your chair or something. The mere
No,
the
no,
mere
not yet.
mention that Euron would go to the city that's the antithesis of everything he stands for, and narratively is very satisfying if he attacks it or even takes it for himself. Anyway, in Old Town there is a
Nah.
book called The Death of Dragons. If Euron
Which
goes
the
to Old
Faceless Men are
Town,
going for.
yeah, well, Euron might intercept and snatch it for himself. Or imagine Euron in the show killing Rhaegal. Was it Rhaegal? Yeah, killing Rhaegal is directly from George. That would be he
What?
doesn't bind one, he doesn't ride one, but he does just kill one using that
I
book.
don't know. I tend to think if you know what I tend to think about that specifically. I've talked about this in a video in the past. I think I think the dragons got shuffled. I think Viserion is going to be the one that is supernaturally controlled by some means, most likely by Euron. And I think that Aegon is going to attempt to claim Rhaegal, fail, and then have to Scorpion Rhaegal.
Interesting.
I mean, Rhaegal is the name of his supposed father, who's not actually his father. Trying to claim that and failing would be very symbolically rich. And he is assumedly allying with the Dornish, who have a history with scorpioning dragons.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Could we
that's my.
circle back to Victarion? So you're kind of
Who?
Big Vic himself, the one and only. How dare you?
Ah,
How dare you pretend you don't know?
no, goat.
You're kind of describing the idea that in a 5-year time skip, George probably would have killed him, and there's that blah blah blah. But like, do you think, because this is our time skip, would you kill him off?
Personally, I find him really funny.
Yeah, this is
I
our
don't
time
know
skip. You don't have to do what George would have done. This is what we're doing to make the time skip work. Like,
You know what I would do if I were Martin, which I'm not, as many people do think I am. I can promise you I'm not. GM does not stand for George Martin. Um, what would be narratively the coolest to me is this journey to Daenerys taking place right at the start, after the 5-year gap opens up, once the time has passed, and then once we arrive in Meereen, all hell breaks loose, and we see the Ironborn fleet fracture in some way. And at that point, maybe Victarion joins with Dany rather than continuing to support his brother, whereas Euron maybe gets a dragon and goes back to Westeros. I'm a big proponent of Squid Bowl, and I think that's going to happen regardless.
Squid Bowl get hype. I'm not a big fan of Squid Bowl. I don't want Euron's conclusion, his fate, to be personally tied to Victarion. No, I don't mind it being tied to Victarion in some way, but I don't necessarily want a Victarion versus Euron duel that ends with Victarion killing him like Clegane Bowl. Like that doesn't.
I'll also say that the naming it Squid Bowl was also intended to be flexible. That's more meant to say that I think we need an Ironborn to kill Euron. I would be okay with it being Asha, Aeron, or Victarion.
Or Theon question mark?
I don't know. I don't know how those two stories intersect.
Yeah.
Theon and Euron are basically on different planets for the series as it exists so far.
Okay, fair enough. So
Theon killing Ramsay, I could get behind, but Euron, I feel like Aeron is probably the thematically best way to do that.
So Vicky might have some kind of alliance with Dany, shall we say?
Yeah, if he survives.
If he survives, this is our time skip. We get to decide. God damn it, we are to. Don't be held back by what George would have done. He's alive. He's with Dany and Meereen. Aeron is in a dungeon, getting ready for the Battle of Blood, probably. And Asha,
Do you think the Battle of Blood happens?
Probably not as we know it, but in fact, we could talk about Euron specifically in a sec. But Asha, when she flees, she flees to Deepwood Motte, right?
She hasn't fled yet, as of.
Oh,
if we're just going Arms of the Kraken as written material at that point.
okay, so
we don't know that she's in the north.
She left to Harlaw. She's on the island of Harlaw, right?
Yes.
Okay, so 5 years. Is she still on Harlaw? That doesn't make sense. Euron probably have thrown her in prison or killed her, or she'd be in a forced marriage with Eric Ironmaker. So, but where has she fled? Is she just at Deepwood Motte for 5 whole years?
That's a tricky thing. I think that her being there is kind of out of necessity on Martin's part, like wanting a viewpoint with Stannis. But in this situation, we have enough viewpoints on Stannis.
Yes, yeah. So I guess.
So I don't know.
Oh my god! Speaking of a viewpoint on Stannis, I never got to circle back to Davos.
Oh yeah.
What's Davos doing? Is he still doing the White Harbor plot? And then the Rickon from Skago? Okay, is he just at the wall? Is he a POV at the wall?
No, he's dead.
Davos is just dead.
Davos was killed off screen.
Damn. He did some more smuggling, got his other fingers cut off.
People are gonna think I'm the #1 Davos hater. I don't dislike Davos. I do think he'd be alive, but yeah.
But doing what?
I don't
what?
Think any of his public material survives.
Just the POV with Stannis when he marches south? Or
maybe?
Why not have him? Hey, the blizzard's disappeared. Now he can go to White Harbor. Or what if he's not at the wall? What if he's already been sent to White Harbor? What if it starts and he's on Skagos? What if in the 5-year time skip he was sent to White Harbor, he got sent to Skagos, and he's like a prisoner on Skagos?
For 5 years?
Yeah, bro, they've been eating him piece by piece.
Well, the tricky thing is, like, he's not at the wall at the end of A Storm of Swords. He's already been sent off on this mission.
Oh.
So we know the White Harbor mission has started right when the time skip starts.
You need to remind me of this stuff. I'm not remembering any of this.
Yeah, no. So, I don't know. It would either need to have failed, and, like, he's back, or I don't know. I think Davos doesn't work for me. I think it's too tricky to find a way for him.
Or he's being slowly eaten in Skagos and then epically escapes, like Jack Sparrow in the second Pirates movie.
I've never seen a single Pirates
movie. You can actually leave. You can get out.
Okay, I'll see you later.
I mean, but you've seen Captain Jack, right? In Game of Thrones, season 6, 7, and 8.
What?
Also known as Euron Greyjoy.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Crack Sparrow. Okay, so
I thought you were saying that like the actor was in Game of Thrones, and I got really confused.
No, Johnny Depp is not in Game of Thrones, as far as I know.
That's his name.
That would be wild, though. Can you imagine? Amber Heard would make a good Cersei, in many ways. Anyway, so
I don't know anything about any of that.
Vicky is in Essos. Aeron is in prison. Asha. Let's have something definitive here. What do we do with Asha? Is she just in a northern Ironborn territory that hasn't been taken back by the Boltons? Because if that's so, then
he is dared to ask what's west of Westeros.
God damn it!
She's sailed off into the Sunset Sea.
When we meet her 5 years later, she's just arrived at Ashai by the Shadow. She's like, "Oh my god,
there's the Sun Chaser." I don't know. I think. I genuinely do not know what I would want to do with Asha with a 5-year gap. I mean, if we're looking at the initial version of these characters, none of them were supposed to be long-term viewpoints. They were supposed to show us the King's Moot and then essentially go away, not forever, but go away until you're interacting with another viewpoint.
Yeah, and I guess the only one that makes sense is to copy what happens in Dance and have her meet Stannis. Have him launch that attack. She is in Deepwood Motte. Yeah. Do the same thing. It's just she's been in Deepwood Motte for 5 years. Maybe it's been a 5-year siege by the Boltons, or maybe there's that blizzard, which is very the blizzard makes things so convenient in the north.
Yeah, I don't know if the Ironborn could hold Deepwood Motte for 5 years.
Yeah, no, they fucking couldn't. Okay, so let's say Aeron is a yay. Like, he can just be in prison for 5 years. Euron wants his holy man blood for some event in the future, maybe, and we get to see Euron through him. Victarion in Essos, already allied with Daenerys, kind of anti-Euron vibes going on. Yeah.
I would say hard yay on Aeron, like more of a so-so but leaning yay on Victarion. Asha, I don't think it works.
Yeah. Again, if I will say the Deus Ex Blizzard in the north means that Asha could work if she's been in Deepwood Motte for 5 years.
Yeah, I guess.
In theory, and then, like, no one's done anything. Why hasn't Euron attacked it to get her?
Exactly.
Oh, yes, Euron. What is Euron up to? Has he been raiding the Reach? Or does he build up his power? Oh, maybe building ships. Maybe just building up a giant fucking fleet over 5 years. And then he launches his attack on the Shield Islands and the Manda and the Red Wine and the Red Wine Straits and the Arba, etc. when the story starts.
Yeah, someone in the chat also asked, isn't Asha pregnant? She probably gets pregnant in A Dance with Dragons. So,
does she?
As far as this time skip is concerned, no.
She probably gets pregnant?
Yes.
Why?
She gets with Carl the Maid in the Wayward Bride chapter, and then very, very obviously thinks, oh, I should brew myself moon tea, and then doesn't get to because Stannis captures her.
Ah, so the narrative is specifically pointing out, she didn't do this in time.
Yes.
Interesting.
She's most likely pregnant. Most theories I've seen for her arc and wins involve that.
What would the point of that be? I haven't seen any of these theories.
Continuation of the Ironborn line is a big one, as at present not Ironborn, Greyjoy line. And also could be could be somehow involved to be a candidate for king, or allow Asha to rule as regent in the aftermath of everything.
If Asha dies in childbirth, I'm gonna flip.
I don't think she will. If
but
she
it's
does,
George R. R.
I
Martin.
would also.
That's the only way he kills women.
Is that true? No, Catelyn.
That's true. That's an outlier though, and you know it.
It was the opposite of childbirth. It was child death.
Oh man, damn! Pregnant Asha. I haven't seen that theory, or maybe I haven't. I don't remember.
I talked about it 5 different videos.
I don't watch your videos.
That's fair.
I don't watch a Song of Ice and Fire content. I need to read the books first.
No, who would?
Okay, Shall we?
Do you want to hit some super chats?
I'll hit some
before we
super
move on
chats,
to the...
then we'll move on. So, thank you for the. Wait, hold on. Let me go down here. Whoa. Thank you for the super chat from John, who says, "Who do y'all think was the best casting in Game of Thrones?" Oh, the best. You can only pick one, Quinn. You can only pick one.
I've got one.
Go for it.
Conleth Hill.
Ooh. Oh, that's good.
I cannot picture Book Varys without thinking of Conleth Hill.
That's very good.
He is the character brought to life.
Okay, my boring answer is Sean Bean as Ned Stark, even though it's not...
I disagree with that.
Wait, just to clarify, best casting as in looks the most like the book character or embodies the role the best? Because...
I would say the latter.
Because Sean Bean, like, a younger Sean Bean could play Ned Stark, but he's obviously too old to be Ned Stark. Like, yes. So when I read the books, I don't think of season 1 Ned because he's too old. But I think he embodied that character perfectly.
Very, very good. I don't know if I'd put him in my top 5 or 10.
Nah, that's insane. Sean Bean's the goat. What are you talking about? He's the beanie goat. Seen a bean.
He's great. I love him in the role, but...
I'll throw a slightly more interesting answer out because Sean Bean's boring as an answer. Is Carice Van Houten as Melisandre is incredible casting.
Yeah. I'd also say if we're going in the camp of like people who are older than their book counterparts, I honestly think I like Michelle Fairley. Is that her name? Catelyn's actress?
Yes, she's very good.
In her role more than I like Ned.
Okay. I mean, she doesn't quite fit the book. She's not really book Catelyn, but as for the character she is, she's very good.
Yeah. I would argue that's also the case for Ned.
You could argue it's the case for all of the characters, to be fair.
I think a big part, at least for me, of Ned in the book is being in his head. And I think that it's hard to translate that to screen.
You know who I think the best actor was? Tom Turgoose, who plays Lannister Soldier 1.
Oh. I thought you were going to say Ed Sheeran.
That's Lannister Soldier 3.
Oh, shit. Yeah, we move on to... Oh, no, there are more super chats.
There are more super chats. Thank you for another one from Ulrich Tran. I wonder what this one's going to be. Oh, yeah, big surprise. The Battle of Milk. Aegon defeats dumb Dany at King's Landing. Sometimes it feels like I'm getting super chats from, like, AI. You know what I mean?
It sounds like it.
Thank you for the super chat from Z-Cape, who says, Hail House Peak. We love House Peak in this on this channel and in Quinn's channel. Oh, yeah. Quinn's got a video about House Peak.
I do, a very old one.
And I should probably do a video about House Peak at some point in the future, because yours did surprisingly successfully.
I think it's like my fifth most viewed video.
That is really weird. That it's about a non-show house.
Sorry, third most viewed video.
Wow, why?
I have no clue.
That is baffling. Sometimes you can't predict.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Oh, my Real Euron video is doing really well, by the way.
Yeah.
40k views already. Ooh.
Nice.
People want to see it.
Yeah.
Yes, Hail House Peak indeed. Thank you for the super chat from Pioneer.
The video
10.
I posted on the same day is also at 40 something.
We did drop on the same day.
Houses, which was also peak.
Peak performance.
I know.
Thank you for the...
What else we got?
Super chat from Pioneer 10, who's also a patron of mine. Hey. Dragons fly and milk boils. See, if you're going to do a milk super chat, be creative like that one. I like that one. Thank you for the super chat from, I'm going to butcher this, Jonas Fiala, who says, Edric Dane could have been Arthur 2.0. Such waste. Oh, yes. 5-year
That is a big thing in a 5-year gap.
When's a good time to talk about... Because we're doing POVs specifically. We could even do a follow-up live.
Other characters could be their own stream.
Yeah, on your channel, we could do like non-POV. Yeah, we'll talk about... But like, yeah, the general idea of Ned Dane being the new Arthur, he'd be, what, in his late teens after the 5-year time skip, I believe?
Yeah, he'd be like 16, 17.
Oh, speaking of, let me quickly... So, ahem. I forgot to catch up on this. So, Sam Tarly is the same age as Jon Snow, right?
Yes.
So he'd be 21-ish. Asher, unless my calculations are incorrect, Asher would be 29 after the time skip.
Makes sense.
Aeron would be around 35, mid-30s. And Victorian would be late-ish.
Wait, Aeron is only 30?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's hard to imagine, but he is just a young guy with a massive Jesus beard.
That's I don't know if Jesus had that big of a beard.
He had a big beard. He had a massive beard.
I'm
Famous,
just picturing Jesus with like a Santa beard.
Famously, Jesus had a beard down to his knees, and he was a white man.
Looks exactly like Gandalf, as portrayed by Ian McKellen.
Or like Aeron Greyjoy, as portrayed by...
I don't think he had a beard in the show.
Hold on. I'm remembering. I'm not looking it up. I'm remembering. As
you're
portrayed by
remembering.
Michael Feast. Yo, his name's Michael Feast. That's fucking bad. He also doesn't have a beard. You're right.
Oh, Michael Feast for Crows.
Michael Feast for Crows. It's so baffling to me that character is canonically Aeron Greyjoy when he doesn't. No one talks about him or treats him like, and he's like obviously way older than both Aeron and Balon. And no one questions it. It's so fucking random. Anyway, yes, and Victarion is like late 30s after the time skip.
Yes.
Okay. And Reek's about... Theon is 19 in the Game of Thrones, right?
Yes, so he'd be 24.
But by a dance, because he'd be like 21.
Oh, you're right. So he'd be 20...
22? By dance?
You just subtracted 2... Wait, what?
Wait, how many years passed between Game of Thrones?
I thought you were saying with the time skip.
No, without the time skip, he's like 22, right?
21.
21. I thought 3 years passed between Game and Dance.
Nope, it's 298 to 300.
Oh shit, okay, that's why my maths have been wrong. I've been thinking it's 3 years. Okay, completely ignore me. So he'd be 21, so he'd be 26, yeah.
Yes.
26-year-old. Holy
Sorry,
shit, that's
Harry
my
is
age.
scratching and wants me to let him into my room, so I'm going to oblige him.
Let Sir Pounce in. God damn it. I'm going to change the screen, everyone.
Harry has joined the stream.
Hello, Harry. Everyone say hello to Harry. Harry is Harry the Heir is Quinn's trueborn son and heir. And also
Correct.
a cat.
He inherits the channel if anything should happen to me. We do have a couple more super chats, it looks like, one of which is from Boomler.
We do have a few. I want to save some. Let's do another slide. And
Yeah,
we'll go
let's
back to
save. Let's keep going.
So,
because I think the next character, I would argue, is the character it might work the best for.
This little known character known as Elaine Stone. She's a bastard. Not a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. Just
because like the issue of like Bran and Arya like needing to get to their destination where they'll train is not an issue with Sansa.
Yes, exactly. Like, just in the Eyrie, politicking, making connections, maybe... I mean, so many different avenues to go down, but let's just stick with politicking, making connections, learning the game from Littlefinger. She's 18 at this point, which means any sex stuff is not as weird as it might be if any of that stuff happens, although...
Still weird, but not as weird.
Yeah, not as weird, for sure. And again, maybe Harry the Heir is involved still, and it's a bit more normal that a 19-year-old is interested in flirting with an 18-year-old as opposed to a child. But also, Harry the Heir might not exist after the time skip, because Robin Arryn would be old enough to marry, right? Wait, how old is...
True, and
Robert's
we do know
Arryn, sorry.
In that the draft we did talk about like 2 years ago, there was that note like Sweet Robin woos or weds.
Oh, yes. So I suspect Harry the Heir was created due to the lack of time skip. Yeah. According to the wiki, he's 8 years old, so that would make him 13, which is pretty...
A very marriage-eligible 13 years old.
I mean, in Westeros, apparently, you can be any fucking age and get married, which I have ranted about
before. Because Tyrek
before.
marries a baby.
I have ranted before about the insanity of the marriage ages and how they don't actually reflect medieval Europe in the slightest. Anyway, and especially shouldn't be the case in a society that has maesters, but I digress. Yeah, we probably don't see Harry the Heir. We probably see Elaine marrying Sweet Robin. She has become Littlefinger's apprentice. She's learned the game from him. Can you imagine 5 years later, like going from Storm of Swords Sansa, 5 years later, and there's this like badass kind of sneaky Machiavellian Sansa. Oh,
that'd be awesome, especially if it like opens up with Elaine just being like the chapter title, and we don't know who that is at first.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
I love when he turns and he's like,
Yes.
he's free. He's free, Otto. Yes.
I miss Viserys so much.
I've
been rewatching season 2 of House of the Dragon, and it's a little better than I remembered in a lot of ways, but also worse than I remembered in other ways.
I do think, and I thought about this as it was wrapping up. I said that people are going to look back on it, irrationally negatively, and it's not going to match the actual quality of the season.
People are going to look back irrationally negatively until season 3 airs and people start binging the whole thing, and then there will be zero issue.
Yes. Suddenly we will be so back.
Yeah, which there are issues that exist beyond the structure of the season, but I would say not having a climax is the biggest issue.
I mean, a bad ending ruins everything, as we learned from Game of Thrones. Now, obviously, as book readers, our take on the show is a bit more nuanced than the ending was bad.
Did you know that today is the 6th anniversary of the series finale of Game of Thrones?
Oh my god, 6th anniversary. That's so depressing. I was a uni student. I was in second year of uni.
Senior in high school.
Wait, second year or third year? Second year. Oh man, now I feel old.
I didn't think you were that much older than I am.
Oh, I'm really having a quarter-life crisis recently.
Oh.
God damn. You'll get there soon, Quinn. Give it a year.
What are you doing, Harry?
Yes.
He's trying to get behind my bookshelf. Sorry.
Yes. Okay, so anything to add to Elaine? Like
nothing. It's a hard yay.
Scheming, apprentice of Littlefinger, maybe marrying Sweet Robin, persuading him to take the North or take the Riverlands or whatever. Because we don't know enough about what she's going to get up to. But is there any way it doesn't work? Let's flip it around.
No.
I agree. I couldn't think of anything.
It's perfect. Like me.
Hell yeah. I wonder if Littlefinger's hair is any grayer. In fact, speaking of that, another thing with the 5-year time skip is that George he would have had to age every single character up 5 years and remember that.
That would have been a pain.
And remember that. Like, oh my god. Like, you know that he'd mess up one character and that character would be the same age and everyone would go crazy.
Hell, there are theories that he messed up with characters in, like, the time that exists in the published series.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
like, you know, the Sailor's Wife theory.
Yes, I've heard about that, yeah. And even just stuff like, not ages, but like Renly's eye color, which Renly's eye color is not egregious.
What?
He has blue eyes, but
the whole, like, Jane Westerling hips thing?
The hips thing is egregious. Renly having described as having green eyes, he's got green armor and it got changed to greeny blue. That's fine. But Catelyn actively saying Jane Westerling has wide hips and she'll be able to birth Robb Stark healthy children, and then the next fucking book, Jaime specifically saying she has narrow hips, why was Robb into her, is such a ridiculous discrepancy. I read it, because I binged the books, I remember being like, I picked up on it as I read it. I remember being like, what? Huh? I was very confused. I was like, what does this mean?
Oh, really good point in the chat, actually, before we move on from Sansa. Someone named Quentin is Alive says that So Spake Martin has something from May 2001 saying that Harry the Heir is a thing and was mentioned back then, back when the Gap wasn't scrapped. So maybe he was a factor.
Oh, I guess also...
Maybe it was still like, oh, she's going to marry Harry, but Harry is a shitheel and dies, and she marries Sweet Robin instead.
Yes, or... Yeah. Because again, she can only marry Sweet Robin if she's revealed as Sansa Stark. Because the Lord of the Eyrie would not be allowed to marry Littlefinger's bastard, even if he is the Lord Protector. Like, he would get thrown out the moon door. So, like, the whole Harry the Heir, but he suddenly dies, is a theory that I still don't understand.
I like it.
But it's just, it's the classic, what's the point? You always have to go back to, what is the purpose of any of this? Why would you waste our time? Oh, she's going to marry this guy. Lol, he's dead. Okay, cool. Thanks for wasting my time. Like, that didn't add anything.
Well, it's obviously to mirror the champions at Ashford Meadow.
Oh, goddamn. This is why theorists aren't allowed to write books. They will have everything be about what mirrors this specific thing in the past and this niche thing online. And it's got nothing to do with what actually serves the narrative of the characters. Goddamn. Anyway. Shall we move on? I think we should move on.
Absolutely.
Harold Harding existing back then, though, does that imply that they were gonna... Oh, and he probably would have been the same age he is in after the time skip anyway, right?
Yes, yeah. I think so.
And like I said, it would make him way less weird. Okay, moving down
Yeah.
to King's Landing. Now, these characters have aged up
Yeah.
a little bit. They are both around like 40-ish.
So, you remember how I mentioned that Martin has specifically said that two characters were the reason that the 5-year gap got cut, or at least cited as examples of that?
One was John.
One was John,
One,
the other was Cersei, who I agree with.
yeah, I think honestly, when George talks about how he was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna write what happened in the 5 years. I'm gonna like actually write these ideas down instead of doing a skip." I always think of King's Landing. I don't know if he specifically mentioned King's Landing, but I always think of like him being like, "Oh yes, remember when the High Sparrow took over in the Faith Militant," and just being like, "Why aren't I just writing this? This sounds badass," you know?
I think the exact thing that he says is like, "Oh, do you remember when this guy was hanged 5 hands ago, and this happened, and this conspiracy happened, and yada yada yada?" Because like Cersei's arc is so directly sparked by Tywin's death, by Tyrion supposedly killing Joffrey, by her being placed into this position of very high power and unraveling very quickly because of it. And I think that that just does not work with the 5-year gap. And it's honestly something that I do not think the series functions without. It is among my favorite arcs in the series, and I would not want to be without it.
Because what else would you do?
Exactly. What else is Cersei gonna do?
You could have all the feast plot starting at the start after the time skip, but then what happens in 5 years? Like, is it just slow motion?
Why does she start unraveling so long after Tyrion kills her father and son?
It could just be kind of a slow motion, and then there's a straw that breaks the camel's back. Like maybe Varys does some bullshit. Maybe Varys like assassinates someone as a troll, and then Cersei that makes her snap, and that kind of sets along. It could be like the whole kind of
like the dance epilogue type thing.
Yeah, it's like yeah, kind of where it's like, you know, small and small and small increases in her paranoia and instability over 5 years, and then there's the thing where it goes too far, and then it's exponential, right? And so, you know, the whole famous Littlefinger quote when he's like, "I thought I'd have 5 years, but Cersei's already fucked things up." It's like you can see her gradually fucking up and things coming more bloated and corrupt and inefficient, and then things start unraveling with the faith. And I think it could work. It's just, how do you come up with enough things in 5 years so that it's not like nothing has happened in 5 years? I don't know.
Maybe like the faith movement could be something that is built over this 5-year period. Like maybe it's developed. But also, like, by that point, assumedly things have started to, like, be repaired from the War of the Five Kings, and it's less of an immediate response. I don't know.
What if she's not the Queen Regent? What if she's not in power?
I don't. That's
what if it's 5 years of Kevin Lannister?
For 5 years.
What if it's 5 years of Kevin Lannister, and then he gets kicked out, or she forces him out, or he resigns, and then she takes over, and then everything starts going to shit?
But I don't. Thinking about Cersei as a character, I don't think Cersei sits there for 5 years.
Yeah, waiting.
Exactly. She's not. She has her moments, especially in the first 3 books. She's quite good at playing the Game of Thrones. That changes when she kind of unravels after these deaths, but regardless of that, I would say impatience has always been one of her biggest flaws. And I think that being such a core tenet of the character is just diametrically opposed to the 5-year gap as a concept.
Some would say unraveling after the death of Joffrey and Tywin and everything Tyrion does. Others would say low-key retconning of Cersei's character.
Can I also tell you that you forgot another viewpoint?
In King's Landing, question mark?
Where's Brienne?
Brienne who? God damn it. I'm so sorry. You can add a picture of Brienne.
Okay.
God. I'm sorry, everyone. People are going to think I hate Davos and Brienne specifically.
Hey, nobody will get accused of more Davos hate than me after my dance ranking.
Davos is fire. I do need to actually. I need to watch your dance ranking video. I haven't actually done it yet. It's a long video.
Davos does not have a high.
Davos. Wait. The chapter in the Merman's Court with the phrase and then Wyman's speech. That's fire. Come on.
Those are 2 chapters.
Oh, they're both good though. I remember them both very distinctly. The one where he's in the Sisters Island eating stew, I remember being boring.
I will say that I made these rankings a year ago, and if I had to change something, I probably would bump Davos 3 up by like about 10 to 15 placements. But as it stands, I do not have it ranked very high.
The Mama's farce is almost done.
I think it's somewhere in the 40s or 50s.
My son is home. God, imagine that quote in this.
Well, that Davos 4 is much higher. Davos 3 is on the lower side.
Oh, I can't remember which one's which.
4 is the big speech by Manderley.
Oh, I think I may have
3 is the
said
trial.
the Lannister twins would be in their late 40s when I meant late 30s. I do apologize, everyone.
I think you just said 40.
Okay, I think 40 might be a bit. Wait, what are they meant to be? Aren't they like 30 something? Are they 30 in Game of Thrones?
They're like mid-30s, mid-30s.
They're early 30s at the start of the books. They're not mid-30s. Because Tyrion's mid-20s.
I'm being the guy in the chair. Let me see. As of where's age? Born 266 AC, so she's 34. They're both 34 as of the end of A Dance with Dragons.
Oh shit. Okay, so they'd be like
maybe 39.
Yeah, damn. And as you can see in those 5 years, Jaime's hair's grown longer. He's got some crow's feet, and Cersei's washerwomen have continued to shrink her damn clothes. Completely unacceptable.
Yeah, what do you think of Jaime in this instance? I do not think Cersei could work. I am less sure on Jaime. I still don't think he could work.
So
I don't know.
There are two options here. One, he stays in King's Landing being a Kingsguard, not doing anything, which is, to be fair, that is what Kingsguard
The other's
do.
what, the Riverlands?
The other is that he's already besieging Riverrun, and it's been going for 5 years, which is kind of not unbelievable that you could have a 5-year siege with a massive castle like Riverrun, where you have allies smuggling things in via the river, etc. Like,
especially if he is still committed to the oath he took to Catelyn of not harming Tully.
I guess you either have if we go down this, we either have 5 years of the phrase being incompetent at sieging, and then after the time skip, Jaime goes to help, which feels a bit silly, or
I thought you said goes to hell.
It goes to hell. Well, that's Dream of Spring.
True.
That's a wild chapter. Go through those Oblivion gates, but no. Or Jaime is already there,
actually,
maybe 1 year of Frey sieging, and they're like, they're incompetent, Jaime, you sort it out, and Jaime's been there for a year, but then you've already established his, he already, part of what's fun with Feast is him meeting all of these characters for the first time, like all the Freys, and seeing his aunt again for the first time in a while, and it's like, if everyone's just camped outside for 5 years and they will know each other, I feel like, what's the turning point? What changes? Why doesn't Jaime do, the threats he was initially going to do, and I don't know.
With speaking of Jaime going to hell, there was on the subreddit a week or two ago, somebody posted a mock-up of every a chapter list of wins with a little summary of each chapter. It's some pretty interesting ideas, and one of them was Jaime versus Brienne in a trial by combat at Stoneheart's behest. Jaime dies and then gets the kiss of life from Thoros.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not. I don't know if I think it's likely, but it's a cool idea that I'd never thought of or heard before.
Undead Jaime.
And Thoros would then die, which I think makes sense. He really doesn't necessarily want to be with the Brotherhood anymore. And Jaime being driven by fire after his most defining action was working against it. I could kind of chill with that.
I could kind of see it. I don't. It doesn't quite fully connect for me. But I wouldn't.
The tricky thing is I don't know how they're gonna get out of this interaction with Stoneheart, because I don't think either of them are gonna permanently die from it.
I do want to say Quentin is Alive has been dropping some bangers in the chat. The Harry the Air one also said Sansa's story back then quite similar to what we have now. He also said, I know what would happen, but it's a huge spoiler George accidentally shared in 2003. Linda confirmed that the Faith Militant storyline was also planned with the time gap, but Cersei's story would have started with a huge spoiler George accidentally shared on the SSM.
I will have to search for that after this stream.
Yeah, I mean, don't post it in the chat, Quentin is Alive, just because people might not want to know that, but yeah, let us know. Yeah, hit us up on Twitter or
my email is on my channel or the Twitter DMs, whatever. But yeah, that does sound interesting. He also brings up a good point that Brienne, Martin has said Brienne's storyline is could have been a big reason that the gap was scrapped, in that the two new viewpoints for A Feast for Crows, back when it was intended to only have two new full viewpoints, were Cersei and Brienne. And Brienne's entire story is this quest for Sansa, which is obviously unsuccessful and lands her in trouble with Stoneheart. I don't know what she does with the gap, because she's at the end of A Storm of Swords, just as a refresher, is sent off by Jaime. So I don't know if she's like unsuccessfully been questing for 5 years. That doesn't seem right. I feel like, I don't know. She wouldn't just be wandering for 5 years.
Yeah, sorry. Did my stream just crash?
Not to my
Okay,
knowledge.
I think
It still says live
my tab
on my
crashed,
end.
but my stream didn't. Okay, we're good. Yeah,
Oh
it's
god.
what do you have Brienne doing for 5 whole years? Just wandering around Westeros with Pod? How old's Pod now? Pod's probably like a teenager.
Pod's like 10 or 12. I forget. I always get Pod's age mixed up with Tommen's age since they're both younger.
Tommen is like 10, right?
Tommen is 8.
8. All right. 13-year-old Tommen on the throne. Hey, Joffrey parallel.
That would be interesting, actually. I'd like to see what Tommen is like at that age.
I think we know from the show.
What, from the show? Yeah, fair.
No, he's probably slightly different.
I mean, that Tommen was like, what, 15, 16?
Yes, yeah, that was like moody teenage Tommen. That wasn't like early
Yeah.
teen Tommen playing Skyrim.
But yeah, I think, in my opinion, at least, I think Cersei is probably the character the 5 year gap works the worst for. I would say Brienne is in the bottom 3 or 5 as well. I'd say hard no on both of those for me. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, especially with Brienne. Like, I'm genuinely trying to think of what you.
That's the thing. Like Cersei, it like I don't like it, but I'm sure there could be ways
you
where
could do
like
it.
her arc begins later,
And Jaime-
and the Faith Militant happens later.
And
but
Jaime-
with Brienne, like
Yeah,
there's nothing.
yeah. Jaime could be a Kingsguard for 5 years, or he could be part of a siege for 5 years, even though that's not super interesting. But like Brienne wandering Westeros for 5 years looking for Sansa, it's kind of tragic, honestly. But like, what is she doing? I don't know. I don't think you can completely write it off and be like, it doesn't make sense, because you could just be like, she has been on a 5 year journey looking for her, refusing to quit, and like nothing has happened, or you know, maybe minor skirmishes with bandits, or she's been hosted by some lords or whatever. But like, I don't think it's as impossible as you're making it seem. I think it's just kind of, she's just searching for 5 years and not having any luck and not giving up, you know.
I feel like her having both no luck and not finding anything, while simultaneously effectively nothing happens to her, is really unsatisfying and feels narratively unlikely.
And then things,
especially when compared to the arc as it is currently in the story.
and then things only start happening at the same time things start happening to every other character after the time
Exactly.
skip. Yeah. Oh wait, no, my bad. Nothing happens
Yeah.
to Brienne in Feast. My bad.
What was that?
Nothing. I didn't say anything.
Okay.
It's all good. Shall we move on? Oh yeah, sorry.
I think we shall.
I'm gonna say, yay to Jaime, yay-ish to Cersei, nay-ish to Brienne, but I think you could make it work a bit. It's not impossible. It's not ridiculous. It's just kind of like boring and a bit weird to have her do nothing for 5 years.
Nay to all 3 from me.
Fair enough. That is fair enough.
InGen
why
in
are
the
you?
chat.
Why are you polluting my beautiful presentations with your memes?
InGen brings up the good idea that Brienne could start a band during the 5 year gap.
Yo, Brienne, Podrick, Hyle Hunt on bass.
Nimble Dick.
Nimble Dick. Oh, that's a 4-man crew right there. Brienne, Podrick, Hunt, Nimble Dick. What's the band name? Everyone in the chat, what's the band name? What's that band name?
What's Brienne's band name?
The Sapphires.
The Oath Keepers is too bland.
Yeah, go creative with it, guys. Okay, we'll read off some super chats and then we'll move on to Dawn. So what? Blah blah blah. Thank you for the super chat from Ulrich again. Thanks Ulrich, who says Gerald Dane will be the new sword of the evening? Question mark. Oh, Darkstar. Interesting. Well, I guess that kind of leads into us talking about Dawn in general. So we will get on to Darkstar. Yeah. Ulrich, don't you worry. Thank you for the super chat from Peridot Gladioli, who says Lord Haven, Quinn, everyone, who is your favourite female character or POV in A Song of Ice and Fire? I think we should answer this with our favourite female POV and then our favourite non-POV.
I would agree with that. Favorite female viewpoint for me is Cersei. I think her chapters are incredibly entertaining, and they're, I think, Martin's most consistent run of chapters in the series, especially for her having 12 over 2 books. That's a lot. especially for Feast and Dance. Favorite female character in the series, also tricky because I feel like viewpoints are the ones who are coming to my mind.
Yeah, no viewpoints, no viewpoints.
No viewpoints.
I mean, a lot of the bangers are obviously viewpoints.
Yeah. I really
And
in
there are
my
more male
recent
characters
rereading
than
of
there are
Dance with
female ones.
Dragons. What was it?
I think there are more male characters than there are female ones. In terms
Oh
of
yeah, and I was thinking
non-POV.
about that. I was looking at this when I was doing my dance ranking because when I was editing it, I was like, "Oh, that's weird." I realized I didn't have like too many. I realized the distribution of female chapters was weird. There were only, I think, 18 of 74 chapters in A Dance with Dragons are from a female perspective.
That's because women be dying in childbirth every second.
That's compared to A Feast for Crows, where I think it's like 60% women viewpoints.
And all of them are Brienne walking
is,
in the woods.
Yeah, something like that. I think Alaros is an interesting character, but we don't see enough of her yet. Ditto with, you know who really grew on me.
Sorry,
in
can
my
I just
recent
interrupt you?
rereading?
Alaris is a man. What are you talking about?
My mistake. I really liked Penny in my recent reread of Dance.
I feel like back in
more
the
than
day
I-
there was Penny hate, wasn't there?
I did not like Penny my first read.
No, not
but
just
she's
you.
really
I just
grown
mean
on
like
me,
in
and
the
I think-
fandom. Like there was a kind of.
I know. I was just saying that back then I didn't disagree with it at that point. What about you?
POV. I'm probably torn between Sansa and Arya. Those, like the first I read the books, those two are super.
Elena
fun.
Tyrell. Sorry, that's easy answer.
Boom, Elena. I'm also going to give different answers to you to be fun. So it's between Sansa and Arya. I know it's a thing in the fandom that some people really don't like early Sansa. I do. I love every Sansa chapter. I prefer Arya, but when Arya moves to Bravos, her chapters do become more boring. Sansa's chapters never become boring. I'm going to go with Sansa. I think I'm going to go Sansa's my favorite POV, female POV. Although
That is fair, and it's tricky because like I feel like I like Cersei's chapters more than any other female viewpoint as compared to each other, but I also think I like both Catelyn and Daenerys as characters slightly more than I like Cersei.
yeah, I guess how we judging it because
Yeah.
because honestly, I'm trying to think. Is there a single female POV character that's lame? There isn't. Daenerys is awesome.
Nope.
Brienne's awesome. Arya's awesome. Sansa's awesome. Arianna's awesome. Cersei's awesome. Sansa's awesome.
Brienne.
Brienne is fucking awesome. Melisandre is awesome. Oh, you know what? Non-POV, Melisandre. I've just got a thing for Melisandre. She's just cool. Maybe.
All right,
maybe...
I'm gonna step away for a second. If you want
Okay.
to finish the super chats or start talking about Dorne, I'll be right back.
Go for it. Yeah. Damn. Mel is just... I think I'm just horny for Mel. I'm not going to lie. Okay, couple more super chats, fellas. And then I'm going to check out the band names for Brienne. Thank you for the super chat from Boombler, who says, both of you are old and wrong. 5 years don't work. That's the whole point of the live stream, you idiot. We're trying to make 5 years work. God damn it, Boombler. We're trying to make 5 years work. And we're making it work. I don't think there's a single character so far where it's 100% impossible. Like, there is... in my opinion, we haven't reached an impossible character yet. Matt, 5 years would be so hard. Imagine you have like 1,000 characters and 100 plot lines, and then you decide to shift everything 5 years. God damn, that would be complicated. Anyway, thank you for the super chat again from Perido Gladioli. Thanks so much. Tommen and Bran are the same age. Oh, cool. Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah, that's cool. Mel is a POV. Oh yes, yes. Yes. Mel is a POV for one chapter. You're right. My apologies. I got blinded by the awooga. Okay, favorite non-POV female character. And I'm not allowed to choose the Queen of Thorns because Quinn chose the Queen of Thorns. Oh man. Let me think. Name 100 A Song of Ice and Fire Women Challenge. Shout out, Wyla Manderley is pretty cool. Gatehouse Amy. There we go, Gatehouse Amy. Boom. What are you gonna do about it? Okay. Cool. Did people come up with Bessie? Bessie is not a book character. Interestingly enough. Okay. Okay, what what band names do we have? Bum ba da bum.
I didn't see any.
Boombler said doomed by the plot.
I was
Cool.
thinking about that as well. That like
Oathkeepers.
just in general, I think I responded to a tweet asking for like favorite Ice and Fire characters a couple days ago. I've realized that like all of my favorite characters are viewpoints because they're like,
yeah,
I don't know, being in a character's head in like Martin's work is just so compelling.
I chose my non-POV was Melisandre, and everyone informed me that she's a POV because we've literally just spoken about it.
I should have informed you of that.
Yeah, that was very cool. So I chose Gatehouse Amy.
Ah,
based. Okay, listen up, Quinn. Band names.
Yes.
Oathkeepers. That's the classic one. The Rave Companions.
That's pretty great.
The Wailing Wenches. There's a little Jamie influence there. The Beauties. Brienne and the Beauties. Brienne and the Beauties. That's quite old school. Nimble and the Dicks. The Dispatched Bunch. The Crack Claw Clan. That sounds kind of sus, I'm not gonna lie.
A little bit.
Call Her by Her Name. Hyle Hunt and the Nimble Dicks.
Call Her by Her Name I like.
The Village People.
Village People. I think that's got to be it. We also have another super chat from Pioneer 10 bringing up an excellent character who I forgot about.
Oh my god, I forgot.
Jenna Lannister.
I take everything back. I choose Jenna Lannister.
Jenna Lannister is an excellent shout. She is like Lannister, Olenna Tyrell. She's the greatest. Pioneer 10 specifically says that Jenna is the Tyrion of A Feast for Crows and the greatest female character.
Jenna is great. We need more Jenna. We should have got more Jenna early on. I do wonder, when he's coming up with the family trees, is he like, and Jenna, I'll bring her into the story later, or is he just like, Tywin has a brother and a sister, and yeah, and then he's just like, I'll use her if I need to.
I think it's very much the latter. I think he's just like kind of leaving himself tools for later in case he needs them.
Very, very D&D.
Exactly.
Very game master.
I need to make that video that Martin is a great dungeon master.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my A Song of Ice and Fire roleplay, like, there were so many, like, I just have characters in the appendix that I'd give everyone for every session, right? And it would just be like...
That's so cool.
It'd just be like, you know... I'd be doing a new session and I'd look them up and I'd be like, oh, I haven't used this person yet. Let me use that. All characters I didn't expect, like, died the previous session, and that affected who inherited what. And then I was like, oh, so and-so is with it. I didn't realize that. And then it completely shifted the dynamic, and it's really cool to do it like that, to just have a bunch of characters. Like, I wonder how planned is Euron, you know? Like, was that just a Greyjoy uncle, or was that always meant to be...
There was a good Brendan Beefish article on like how that story grew with Euron. I'll send it to you after.
Yes, I'd love to read that one.
But I will say, in the chat, people were simultaneously suggesting female characters and band names.
It's very confusing.
I thought someone was suggesting Barbary Dustin as a band name.
Yeah, I know. I was being like, Melisandre is a POV? That's a terrible name. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So, Dorne. What do you think of Dorne?
Dorne, yes. There? Dorne. Then we'll go back to the other super chats. So, okay, so we have Ariane Martell. We have Aris Oakheart. You may have noticed I haven't drawn him yet, and I didn't have time, so I quickly just found an old Kingsguard character with a helmet.
Resourcefulness.
And Erio Hotar, that is an old drawing. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I thought it was Barristan for a hot second.
Thick Barristan.
Yeah.
Barristan the Broad.
So,
yes, yeah.
Dorne was the other half of the mega prologue. It was the other thing that Martin initially really, really wanted to show before the 5-year gap. That being the Dornish reaction to the death of Oberyn. So I think if we are rolling with like, oh, we should have like a novella taking place like right after Storm, I think Dorne needs to be included there.
Yes, and I know sometimes the Iron Islands and Dorne get a lot of hate. I remember when I first read Feast, I remember kind of being like, why are we going to these places, and these plots feel a bit kind of random, and, you know, I've grown to appreciate the Iron Islands more. I don't think I've grown to appreciate Dorne more. I think I'm still very ambivalent about the Dorne storyline. I guess the question...
My appreciation for... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the question for the 5-year skip is it just these characters are minding their own business for 5 years and then Ariane enacts her plan after the skip? Is it that
But
simple?
that's the thing. I don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah, why wait 5 years?
Yeah, the Queenmaker is both a reaction to Oberyn's death as well as an attempt to change the succession, which, like, if Tommen has been sitting on the throne for 5 years, it is a moot point. He is already the king.
Yeah, and even and even in terms of changing potentially the succession of Dawn, when Arianne is like thinking that Doran wants to replace her with Quentin, why would she wait 5 years if she suspects that that's going on?
Like, this does not work in my eyes in terms of a 5 year gap. That said, the whole thing with Duran is him like scheming and planning for too long and letting things kind of overbake. Like he leaves what he's cooking in the oven for too long. So that could be an angle on a 5 year gap, but like I don't know. I think the situation with the Sand Snakes and Arianne taking action to be a Queenmaker is just too volatile to wait logically for 5 years.
What if she's already acted, and when we meet her, she's a princess in the tower. She's Dornish Rapunzel.
For 5 years?
I know that's kind of it's kind of like Duran. Jesus.
Yeah, I don't think that really works. I'm not sure. I think that the way Martin initially intended the mega prologue was to have like a view on the very initial Dornish reaction, and then after the 5 year gap, they would eventually come into the King's Landing plotline as players, as we're seeing at the end of A Dance with Dragons and beginning of The Winds of Winter.
So we completely scrap the Mycella plot, scrap all that stuff, scrap Darkstar, etc. Well, maybe not Darkstar, I don't know. But what do we do with Arianne? Do we have her, so we meet her and she's just in Dawn, and then we kick off with whatever's going on with young Griff, or do we send Arianne to King's Landing?
I don't know, genuinely. I don't know if we... Honestly, in this version of the story, I think we only have one viewpoint, and I think it might be Areo, unfortunately.
Yeah, and...
As much as I prefer... So that's the thing. I think that all three are kind of necessary for the events in Dorne as they start up, but if we're looking forward to a post-5 year gap, like, point, Martin's intent was to have these viewpoints fade away and then be characters in the stories of the other viewpoints. So we'd see maybe Arianne, maybe Aerys, maybe all of the Sand Snakes through Cersei's chapters in King's Landing or something like that, whereas Areo is kind of necessary if Martin finds he needs to have eyes in Dorne, which I think he would stay there.
I mean, do we, after a time skip, do we need ASoIaF? I feel like he's kind of irrelevant. He's just a Kingsguard. I mean, arguably he's irrelevant in Feast, but...
I would make an argument that he's relevant in Feast. I don't know if he's viewpoint relevant, but he's relevant.
Oh, no, yeah, no, viewpoint relevant is what I mean, sorry. I don't think he needs to be a viewpoint.
Death is important. I think he needs to have died in Dorne. Because we need a spot on the Kingsguard for Robert Strong.
That's a good point. So in the time skip, we can have him... Oh my god, what's happening with... Is the Mountain Robert Strong now, or is he... There are so many... Okay, we need to do a side character.
Robert Strong is Sandor.
We need to do a side character stream, because there's so many.
Yeah.
Anyway, Aerys I don't think needs to be a POV.
That's the thing. The Hound really benefits. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, Aerys doesn't need to be a POV. Arianne, you could send her to King's Landing and have her do what Nymeria is probably doing in Winds. Or you can have her...
Or, depending, she could still... If he is going to keep Arianne as a viewpoint, it would probably be to keep an eye on Aegon, which I assume we'll get to.
Yeah. She could just be literally chilling in Dawn, being like, Doran, you need to act. And then the first chapter is he gives his Fire and Blood speech, and he's like, yep, I'm going to reveal it to you. We're working with young Griff. We'll get to Quentin in a sec. Fuck that. And then, boom, we're going to send you out for Aegon, all that stuff. Anyway, Areo Hotar. Excuse me, sorry. Areo Hotar, so he is there for when we need a POV in Dawn, when Arianne inevitably goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, he needs to record handheld footage of Doran. Okay.
Correct. I think, on the whole, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. I mean, all the feast, scrap all of the feast plots. But Arianne, you can just say she's just been in Dawn for 5 years, stewing and being mad at Doran, but not acting. I think you can get away with that.
But that's the thing. I feel like with having opposition to Duran, who is so inactive, that opposition needs to, by nature, be active.
In that
I
case,
think that
maybe there is no opposition, and Duran has already revealed his intentions to her, like after Oberyn's death, and so she's just been like waiting for the right moment. But then, why are they waiting? Oh, in that case, they're waiting for either Daenerys or young Griff, and like
maybe. I still just don't think it works. Like the Ironborn have some salvageable elements, but
again, I'm being optimistic. I think it could work. I think it could.
I'm the pessimistic voice here. I do not think it works.
I think you could have Ariane just be a character who's working with Duran, and they have a plot going together, and that plot is taking time.
But I think what's compelling about Ariane and her arc is the fact that she wasn't always working with Duran, and the fact that like
she is rebellious.
What she wants and what her father wants often conflict, and at this point she's trying to work towards it, but they're going to come into conflict again. I think that's what makes the character compelling. That's the conflict of Ariane.
Yeah, that is.
I do actually. I have a script I've been working on for a while that's in the vein of my Greyjoy like trauma video, like the idea that all 4 Greyjoys are effectively like representing one of the 4 main trauma responses.
I remember that one.
And I think it's not. I think the Martells are not the same, but they're kind of similar in that I feel like all of this generation of Martells are all a response to some form of action by their parents, specifically like parental expectations or something to that effect.
I think we should move over to Essos because we are.
I agree.
We are skirting around Quentin. So,
is that Quentin?
That's Quentin.
I thought that was Arya.
It's been a long 5 years. No, that is Quentin.
Wait.
Sorry, that is Arya. You're right. I didn't realize what order my slides were in. Let's move to Bravos then.
Yeah.
So, in the same vein as Sansa being a schemer training under Littlefinger and Bran training to be a tree wizard person, it will be 5 years of Arya being trained by the Faceless Man. When we meet her, she's probably a skillful liar and an adeptful assassin. Perhaps she's already learned how to swap faces, and she's going on assassination quests. And the storyline post-time skip is probably her finding her identity and leaving Bravos, but she's full on like sneaky ninja warrior.
Yes. And I think in this instance, she has a similar problem at first blush to Bran with like not getting here, and we don't see her arrive at the House of Black and White and how all of this starts. But for her, I think it kind of works, and that could be kind of regained as she regains her past self to the reader. And I do think, I mean, we know what her first chapter was going to be. It was Mercy.
Yes, that's true.
Like that was written in like 2001.
So Mercy was going to be her first chapter. It was also released as a Wins sample chapter, right?
Correct.
Was it adapted? Was it edited, or was it exactly the same?
Yes, it has been edited to come in line with the no longer being a 5-year gap story, but in my opinion, it has not been edited very much, and I think that makes it kind of stick out like a sore thumb as compared to the rest of the series.
Because she is very much acting 5 years older and even more callous than before, and yeah, it honestly, it makes me.
As much as I dislike Mercy as a chapter, I think she fully works.
It fully works. I mean, you don't like Mercy's. Oh, you don't like it because it doesn't make any sense for the character.
Yes, correct.
I like it in the context of in a parallel universe where we had the 5-year time jump going in with Mercy, and this is what Arya's become, and is like quite cool and nasty and cold, and like it's kind of quite fun in that way. But you're right, it doesn't quite fit 11-year-old Arya.
In a vacuum, I do quite like it, but as like a chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire, it is very low for me.
Shout out to Raph. I'm such a big fan of these minor characters appearing one place and then they reappear another place, and I love that shit so much. That tickles me.
Oh yeah,
that tickles my brain.
Between viewpoints is always fun too.
Different perspectives.
Yeah.
So she's training to be an assassin, and then presumably, as I said, the story would be her escaping the cult and finding out that she's not no one, she's Arya.
I agree.
She's gonna get chased by she's gonna get stabbed in the stomach and fall in the dirty river and be chased by the Terminator waif.
Well, it's only if it's good.
Of course. And then
so we got what, 2 sections left?
We do. let me
2 sections in 20 minutes.
let me read out a couple. We have one super chat I wasn't able to read out. Another band name from Peridot Gladioli. Thank you so much. Who says band name Boss Woman and the Simps. I mean, Hyle Hunt's kind of a simp, but in a like a opportunistic way.
Yeah.
And Pod is just a good boy who's trying to be loyal, and Dick Crab is he's just bored. I think Dick Crab's just a bored guy. He just wants friends. I also have, I think I have a tip from Streamlabs. Streamlabs, yeah. The thing that used to not work on my PC and it completely fucked up that one House of the Dragon live stream. The infamous live stream where we divorced afterwards.
Correct.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for the super chat from... I'm very sorry, but it's come up with an ID and not your YouTube username, which sometimes happens. I do apologize. So let me know who sent me this. But someone sent in $75.
Damn.
That's awesome. Let me know if you want to in the chat who did that, because I can't see your name. I can just see an ID number. Thank you so much. So this person said, thank you for every one of your videos. Obviously aimed at me and not Quinn because, slop. But thank you so much. And we have another tip, which was from Vanderman8, who says, I got into a real-life physical fight over whether show Mel or show Danny was hotter. What? I
wonder which side they were on.
This is also my first ever non-milk super chat. I point that out so I can still say milk. Thank you, Vanderman, for... I was going to say asking a real question, but he didn't ask a question. No fucking way were you in a physical fight over Mel versus Danny. The correct answer is Mel, obviously, but... Yeah, what side were you on, Vanderman? Let us know. Yeah, and more importantly, did you win? Thanks, Kenny, in the chat. Did you win that one? And how did that begin? When you say fight, do you mean you and a bro were just kind of messing around? Or was this like a full-on like fist fight? Teeth flying everywhere? Was it like Jamie fighting Hermione in that one Germ fanfic where he has that has him beat her fucking face in for some reason? Oh, man.
All right.
Anyway, yes, so moving on to... This is Essos generally. So we have Tyrion, who's grown out almost a sort of Tolkien dwarf beard. Tyrion is about 32. Or 31.
Okay.
Actually, no, I need to go down by one, because I thought between Dance and Thrones it was 3 years, but it was 2 years, so I need to go one. Quentin Martell's about 23, and I've given him a little stubble. And John Conn is about early 40s, generally speaking.
Got it. So I will start with the easy part of it that breaks my heart. Connington is probably not a viewpoint in this version of the story.
Okay, explain.
He was initially written as just a part of the Tyrion story. It was covered very well in a semi-recent Preston Jacobs video, but Martin originally wrote The Lost Lord from Tyrion's perspective, but then reworked it by writing Tyrion out of it and changing it to Connington's perspective. So that kind of organically came from the process of writing A Dance with Dragons as it currently exists. So that is part of why we know that the one viewpoint that was intended to be added in Dance isn't Connington. And that's what makes me think it is Quentin, but it is tricky because the ending of the feast part, the Dorne part of the mega prologue of A Feast for Crows was intended to end with the reveal that Quentin has been sent off to Daenerys, and that would be before the 5-year gap, and then it's unclear what happens.
Okay, so let's start with Quentin. Is it the same as the books, where in those 5 years... I mean, is it like in the first year he reaches Dany, she rejects him, and then he gets killed by dragon, but then Doran would already know about that, and then that completely changes the dynamic with Doran and Arianne, and maybe it's like...
It cannot possibly be.
It could be, and then he says, fuck Daenerys, and then he hears about young Griff, is like, I'm supporting this guy instead. Or it could be that Quentin is just like a courtier, is like one of Dany's courtiers, who's like constantly going up to her and asking to marry her, and she's always like pieing him off. Like Xaro Zoandaxus, he's the new Xaro. Where he's like, marry me, please, and then we can take the Iron Throne. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it another time, not quite yet. Like Jalabhar Jo in court being like, let's take back the Summer Islands. They're like, yeah, another time. Or he's just spent 5 years traveling Essos. Maybe he's like getting swept up and it going off course, and I don't know. Or just get rid of him because no one cares. I don't care about Quentin, and you don't need him at all. Just have Doran and Dawn side with young Griff. They don't need to care about Daenerys. You don't need to waste my time with this fucking travelogue.
I don't know. Quentin has grown on me as a character over the years. I feel like him dying like a year into the time skip is very anticlimactic and makes it seem very minor when it's going to be the main motivation for one of the great houses not supporting Daenerys and supporting her enemy. I think that a big reason Quentin is a viewpoint is to give us more of an emotional impact when he does die, which is important, and I think that is key to Dorne's role going forward, so I think we do kind of need to keep it. But then it's tricky if he's being sent off around like the start of the time skip, like to see when he would arrive in Meereen.
Why do you?
I don't know.
Why do you need a reason for Doran to not side with Dany when you can just give him a reason to side with young Griff? Just say Aegon and Arianna marrying. Obviously, I'm going to support Aegon because.
So Aegon and Arianna marrying is something that is not according to Doran's plan. He very much is bought into the Dany Viserys thing and has been for
But you can change
decades.
it. You can change it for the time skip. You can just change it. Everyone's saying Dany's not bothering. She's ruling in Meereen. She's not coming to Westeros. Aegon is this new guy. He's coming to Westeros. Doran's been hit up by Illyrio and Varys. He goes, fine, I'll join you. Like, why do you need to go through the whole complex Quentin going all the way there and then dying as a reason for like?
But the thing is, I don't think that Connington and Aegon come to Westeros during the 5-year gap.
No, I don't know. I think they're preparing to.
But... Exactly. So I don't think they're gonna.
But Doran can still know.
Very much value the element of surprise. I think that's a big portion of their campaign, as is like the point of the Griffin Reborn. So I don't think that could happen until the start of until the start of the like timeline picking up again.
Someone's also brought up a point which isn't quite correct. Someone said Aegon is his grandson. That's not true. Aegon, as far as he's aware, is his nephew. So he does have blood ties to Aegon, so that's another thing. I just don't need Quentin doing that whole plot. Like, I just don't need it. It just...
Speaking of Quentin, he is saying in the chat that something from So Spake Martin, George said in 2000 that we would meet the Golden Company in the time skip version of A Dance with Dragons. So Aegon, that plot is still on. He is still coming to Westeros, like, after the 5-year gap. I think that would just mean Aegon and Jon Connington, by extension, would just have the Stark kid equivalent of, like, having 5 more years of training.
Yeah, they've just been building up the army. They've been training. Young Griff would have to be... He'd be early 20s.
We don't have a precise age on young Griff. At least, I mean, assuming he's...
Yeah.
If he is...
What his age is supposed to be.
Yes.
That is one genuine argument against the whole Blackfire thing, in terms of, like, if he is the son of Rhaegar, then or if he's been told he is, he should think he's 18, and if he's not 18, then he'd be like, hold on, this doesn't add up. But also, if he is like Sarah Blackfire and Illyrio's son, and he happens to be exactly the same age as Aegon, that's kind of bullshit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That is.
He could also just be like a late bloomer. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But this kind of ties in with Tyrion. What the fuck is going on with Tyrion? Let's say the Golden Company are preparing, etc. What has Tyrion done in 5 years? Is he drinking himself to death in Illyrio's manse? Has he already, like, trekked across Essos? Is he at Meereen already? Like, what's going on?
I don't think we open with Tyrion in Meereen. I think, honestly, out of those options, probably drinking himself to death is maybe the most likely.
Well, and Illyrio keeps saying, hey, why didn't you help us? Well, we've got a cool little guy for you to meet. And he's just like, no, go away.
Yeah, I think, honestly, that's probably the most likely.
That can work. He's just a drunk exile. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to this with Daenerys, but the first chapter of Daenerys' story after the time skip was supposed to be the fighting pits with Drogon returning, and Tyrion is technically there in the published version. He's fighting in the pit as part of a show, but I don't think that would be the case in this version of the story. I don't think we'd just open up with Tyrion as a slave in the fighting pits with no context.
No, I think him just being a drunk exile hiding in Pentos in Illyrio's manse works, and you need something to spark him into movement. Maybe, yeah,
or
yeah, go on.
I have a thought. What if he joins the Second Sons?
Ooh,
Or something to that effect. Or like the Golden Company and helps with that.
he wouldn't be very helpful.
I don't know. He could be like the
Paymaster?
treasurer or
Yeah,
something. Like the
he could be.
Inkpots or something.
Yeah,
Because like Inkpot is kind of a clever character, as is Held and Halfmaester. Maybe either of those roles were supposed to be Tyrion.
but do we think he's still going to interact? Yeah, well, he needs to interact with young Griff and the Golden
Yes.
Company, right? Otherwise, there's no POV to do that if there's no Jon Con. So
Exactly.
So he'll
Other than maybe Quentin, but well, that's even a question mark still.
maybe who? Sorry.
Quentin?
Yes, other than Quentin. Yeah. I guess.
Like maybe Quentin was initially supposed to join the Golden Company instead of the Windblown.
That's a good point. But no, I kind of like Tyrion being
Me too.
in Pentos, not in Second Sons. I think I prefer him being in Pentos, and then Illyrio's like, okay, the invasion is nearly ready. Now I'm sending you off to meet the person, to meet young Griff, and then Tyrion ends up being like, haha, invade Westeros, fuck off. I'm going to. Oh no, he gets kidnapped. Yeah, that's what happens. He gets kidnapped by Jorah.
Yes.
Oh, Jorah, how do you... Yeah, I guess you could have 5 years of Jorah fucking about and then... Yeah, no, that works. So, yay or nay, Jon Con, we're saying we're just scrapping him as a POV.
Yes, but I'd also say that just broadly, Jon Con and young Griff, it works.
Yes, it does work.
But 1 second. Continue.
And then Quentin, yay or nay? I mean, like, you can... It's like, what's he doing? 5 years in Dany's court, just being annoying? Is he dead already? Are we scrapping it completely? Live Quinn reaction. I'm going to say scrap, chat. I'm going to say scrap. I'm not a fan of Mr. Quentin. And then Tyrion, I'm going to say yay. He's just been a drunk exile in Illyrio's manse and then he's sent off. Which leads us to Meereen.
Hi, I'm back. Sorry.
Hello. We're moving on to Meereen.
Excellent. Just recap of my positions. I think it works for Connington and Aegon quite well. I think it could work for Tyrion, maybe. I don't think it works for Quentin.
Yep. Okay, finally we have the last two POVs. We have Dany and Barry. So
Barry doesn't exist.
Barry's not a POV because I don't think Daenerys is going missing.
No, it's just Ariston Whitebeard.
Oh, ugh. What was that whole
Also,
thing? What was that thing we had about Ariston? I can't remember.
When I was reading A Storm of Swords and maybe a Clash of Kings, I thought it was Ariston Whitebeard.
Yeah, the least subtle secret identity. Ariston Elmy.
I don't know. I just thought he was not good at like espionage or anything.
Ariston Elmy.
But I think Daenerys is not dissimilar to the Stark kids in terms of benefiting from the 5-year gap, in that she would be ruling Meereen for 5 years. I think one's opinion on how well this works for her as a character depends on your opinion of her published arc in Dance. I know you're not a fan of it. I am.
I'm not a fan. I enjoyed reading the lore in a vacuum and compiling my Battle of Fire video, but the execution is extremely lacking, and
I think there are pacing issues, but I think it is overall executed fairly well.
There is no other character in any of the books where I've turned the page and it's been their name at the top and I've audibly groaned every single time. Where I've been like, oh, don't bring me back to Meereen, please. And then it'd take me like ages to get through the chapters because they were... Ugh. It's okay though. It's allowed. It's meant to be confusing and boring and lame because that's how she thinks it is. So therefore, it's good writing. Ooh.
But regardless of that, I think you could fairly easily say, "Oh, she's been learning to rule as Queen of Meereen for 5 years."
We will have the Great Meereen debate one day. Yeah, she's just been ruling.
Yeah.
You know, you have the Brazen Beasts, the Shaved Pages, the Sons of the Harpy. All of this stuff can just evolve over 5 years. She's also.
Do you think there's still a Meereen not in this case?
She's like she'll be like 20 or something, right?
Yes, about 20.
Cool. That'll make her interactions with Dario less weird.
During the first book.
Yes, yes. And then Barristan will be like late 60s probably.
Barristan might be dead.
Barristan will not be
He
killed
dies of
off.
old age.
Oh, that raises a whole other question of, for the sake of realism, George is absolutely the sort of person who would kill off characters in the time skip because
Aemon is 100% dead.
because every single person living doesn't work in terms of realism.
Aemon would be 107.
But more than Aemon could live. But more than Aemon, like the problem is that you want to be like, yes, there are consequences, things have happened in that time, but you also don't want to kill a character off screen when you've built them up, and
I just figured it out.
Go on.
I think I just figured out why Pycelle dies in the A Dance with Dragons epilogue. I think it's because Martin was going to kill him off during the time skip.
Oh. And then he was like, oh shit, what do I do with Pycelle now?
And he just unceremoniously kills him in an unrelated thing.
I'm always confused by the manner of his death. Because it said his head's like in a puddle of blood, and they're like,
there's like Varys.
Yeah, like that feels very uncharacteristic. Like the whole crossbow and the crossbow to the stomach for Kevin to replicate Tywin's death and implicate Tyrion. Then the little bird stab him, and it's all it's like a manic Tyrion murder is how it's being framed. But why is Pycelle's head just smashed in with we don't know what? Like the idea of Varys doing that is really weird to me.
I've always thought that like what might have been more in character for Varys would have been like some sort of poison for Pycelle to mirror both Joffrey's death to further frame Tyrion, and because he's like in charge of the poison stores.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know why Pycelle was killed. Like I get, because another reason why Varys could have killed him beyond framing Tyrion and creating instability, because Pycelle was, he's a Lannister toady, but he is kind of competent, right? And he doesn't really like Cersei. Is that getting rid of him means that there's an opening for the Grand Maester, and that position could be taken up by Archmaester Gorman Tyrell, and that means there are more Tyrells in the council, and Cersei goes even more crazy and paranoid, right?
Yeah.
But I like the manner of Pycelle's death. Is like
it never fit for Varys.
Like, is it personal? Does he like fucking hate Pycelle? And he's like, I'm gonna make this one fun. I'm just gonna smack you with like a candlestick or something. And also, like, Tyrion is meant to have killed him. Like, did Tyrion just smack him over the head? Like, what?
I've just had two realizations in a row. I think Pycelle being murdered in such a vicious way is Varys's retribution for the sack of King's Landing.
I have heard that. I've heard that before. I've heard that theory before, yeah.
I've never heard that. I'm glad other people have thought it too, but I think that's it.
Because Pycelle was like, open the gates, because he was obviously a Lannister toady.
Lannister toady,
So there was Varys being like, fuck you. Although I never understood, I still don't know why Varys was like, keep the gate shut when Varys was, I don't know. But anyway, what was the other thing that popped into your head?
Oh, that was it.
I thought you said two things.
No, the other one was that I think he died because he was supposed to die in the 5-year gap.
Yes. It was more the nature of his death. But interesting comment from InGen Nate Kenny.
Oh my god. Okay. It's April in the chat cracked it open. The head smashed in was like Aegon's head as a baby.
I mean, and before April said that, Kenny said, Pycelle and Kevin's death are meant to replicate the death of Rhaenys and Aegon. Pycelle gets his skull crushed, and Kevin gets stabbed to death.
Okay. Yep. 100% right on those.
Geniuses. I've never heard that before, but seeing as
me neither. InGen.
Can I just home run? Can I just say? Okay. There are two ways you can justify that. One is that the whole Blackfire theories are complete bullshit, and Varys genuinely, and Aegon is genuinely Aegon, and that's why Varys tells a man he's about to murder that Aegon is actually Aegon Targaryen, and because of the whole death of the pretend baby and then the real Rhaenys, he's like, I'm framing Tyrion, but this is also a fuck you. Or it is Blackfire, but Varys, I'm being very jumbled with my thoughts here. It is Blackfire, but Varys doesn't like Kevin and doesn't like Pycelle because they were kind of involved in the sack of King's Landing. Kevin probably is to some extent, right? So this is Varys being like, this is my own personal retribution for the sack. Not necessarily retribution for... And not out of any loyalty to House Targaryen if he is loyal to House Blackfire. Am I making any sense? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why would he...
Yes, you are.
Why would he do that if he isn't... If he's a Blackfire guy?
with the whole like, oh, why would Varys lie to Kevin thing? I'm of two minds. First and foremost, I don't think Martin is just going to spell it out for us in any
That's the most
way.
obvious one, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And also, I think Varys knows better than anyone else that the walls of the Red Keep could have ears. I think that he would be very careful to kind of keep the hustle up, regardless of whether he was intending for this man to die.
But why?
And I think that
why say anything then? If the walls have ears, why say anything? Why not like surprise motherfucker? Boom! You've been crossbowed.
Because he's trying to maybe build up a reputation to be welcomed into Aegon's council. Look, Your Grace, I've killed these people in the way that you were and your sister were supposedly killed.
Oh, very nice. Oh, that's not... Oh, you can imagine that. They're like, yes, our spy in King's Landing has killed the Lannister dog and the evil maester in the same way. Yeah. Oh, very nice. That okay.
Because Aegon doesn't know who he is, I don't think.
I can't believe we may have solved the mystery behind why is Pycelle... Because that's always been a question mark for me. Pycelle, like, lying in a pool of blood with skull chunks everywhere. I was always like, what? Why? Like, how?
Yeah.
Oh, someone else is saying in the chat, maybe Varys is recreating the deaths to frame the Martells.
Oh, shit!
So then you have Cersei being like, is it Tyrion? Is it the Martells? Maybe Cersei thinks it's Tyrion. Is it the
Martells? Oh
maybe the Tyrells think it's the Martells and like everyone's at each other's throats.
This has got to be a video or something, man. This is awesome.
Bro, we have cooked here. And by we, I mean the people in the chat, of course. The chat. We didn't do anything. We did jack shit. Oh my god, that's
really.
That's framing
Who said that
the
in the chat? Because I might actually make a video discussing
Cuz Koful. Take a screenshot. Take a screenshot.
I'm trying. Where's... How recent... Oh, there it is. Got it.
Koful. And then April brought up the skull crushing thing as well, and then Kenny brought it up too. So those three.
God, you guys are on it. I think this is probably going to be my...
Tyrion and the Martells got framed in one fell swoop. That is so cool.
Damn. Oh my... I genuinely don't think anyone has ever put that together before.
We might look it up, but it could be that someone has and we're being idiots. But like, I feel like we just uncovered a brand new theory.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Again,
if anybody in the chat like knows of another place that has said that, please share.
I'm actually gonna type in Varys framing Martells and just see if anything pops up.
Yeah. I'm not seeing anything.
I see framed Tyrion.
I also see framed Tyrion. I see people asking if he's scheming with the Martells. I think we've cooked.
That is again, I love how we're taking all the credit. Like true YouTubers.
I was saying we as the chat collective.
The collective consciousness of I believe. Oh yes, okay, we did get a bit distracted. Just to wrap up Dany, she's ruling for 5 years, and then the story unfolds, which is her saying it's her fucking up the Yunkai who then decide to siege her and then going back home, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So, I think we have cooked. It's time to wrap up and tell the beautiful people at home what our plans are for the future of our channels and so on. And I'll get a lovely image up on screen of a teaser for my video, but you go first.
Excellent. Yeah, so, hi, I'm Quinn the GM. Thank you for watching. Unsubscribe from Fantasy Haven and subscribe to any other channel. I have videos. I've done several videos. My most recent videos, I've had a discussion on whether the Winds of Winter will have an epilogue, which was a lot of fun. Both like what that epilogue might be and whether it would have one in general. I also did a recent video on Martin's least favorite houses and another one ranking every chapter of A Dance with Dragons. And my next video, I actually will put an image on screen for you. I'm continuing my Winter is Coming series, which is a recap of the recent past of Ice and Fire and kind of speculation going into the Winds of Winter with a discussion of Daenerys in the Winds of Winter, which was a lot of fun. And actually, I just recorded it yesterday, and it has ended up tied in length with my Jon Winter is Coming as the longest in the series. So that was a lot of fun, and I will probably have that up on Friday. So look for that, and thank you for having me, Mr. Late Lord Haven.
No worries. And then to plug myself, of course, I've done the real Euron Greyjoy. Check it out, comparing book Euron with the glorious finger in the bum show Euron himself. And next up, I'm going to be working on the Battle of Blood. But guess what? You're not going to have to wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. This week, I am releasing the Battle of Blood. It might be on Thursday, it might be on Friday, and I'm going to fuck up Quinn's shit.
Hey,
I
we
know how to frame
posted
that.
on Friday, and I think both of those videos have been
That's
doing
true.
pretty well.
Let's do it again. They probably help each other. Like, they probably get recommended on each other's.
Maybe that's a thing going forward.
Hell yeah. Just time them slightly differently, like a few hours apart, so we don't step on each other's toes. Of course, on screen, we have the epic Gundam fight, the Mecha Hightower versus the Kaiju Kraken. And before again, like and subscribe to Quinn, etc. Check out the Patreon, exclusive videos, Discord access. I'm going to be coming out with some new merch, by the way. And let's just say it's going to be inspired by what's currently on the screen. So keep an eye out for that. And before we wrap up,
pretty good.
You can leave if you super need to leave right now. We have one more super chat from the guy who came up with the Martell theory, Kuzkoful. If you have to dip, you can dip, and I can
stick around for this.
Final super chat. Who do you think will meet again first, Jon and Arya, or Arya and Sansa? And do you think the Starks will be the final villains / monsters of the books? Okay, 2 questions there. First up, who's going to meet first, Jon and Arya, or Arya and Sansa?
I actually considered doing a tier list video of ranking every Stark reunion possible in the Winds of Winter. I personally think the most likely reunion to happen first was correctly portrayed in the show being Jon and Sansa. So I think there's a strong chance they could happen simultaneously. Beyond that, them being the final monsters, I'm not sure. I think there could be somewhat of a villainous dimension to like the psychic control that Bran might exert if he is king at the end of the series.
I mean,
beyond that,
you've got
unclear.
Warlock Bran, and then you have like villainous schemer Sansa, and then assassin Arya, and undead Jon potentially. So like that is a lot of that does on the surface does seem kind of villainous, but I don't think that's the end game for them in the slightest. I think they'll regain their humanity for sure. Yes, I agree. And yeah, before we wrap up the stream, just thanks to Quentin is alive in the chat for just giving us So Spake Martin quotes and facts. Is genuinely really helpful.
Yeah, really.
I need to find the one about what was it from early on about
I screenshotted it. It was something in 2003.
It was some kind of big spoiler. Anyway, Lincoln Log missed the whole stream. Don't worry, you can just go back to the start, listen to it while doing something fun like cooking or cleaning or going to the toilet. Is there anything else to talk about?
Nope. I think this is a great stream.
I enjoyed this a lot. Stay tuned. We've both got videos coming out this week.